Hello, hello. Welcome to the Tetracast. This is episode 434, being recorded on March 21st, 2026. I am your substitute host, Josh Torres. Your usual host, Brian Vitali, is out for today. And joining me is Adam Vitali,
Hello.
Chow Min Woo,
How's it going?
Mikhail Madnani,
Hello.
and James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
Hello, hello. This has been an interesting week for video games in general. We've had, of course, one of the bigger releases of this year, Crimson Desert, launched, and that's of course we're going to cover that. We also had an interesting surprise, I guess I'll put it, from Nintendo this week that we're going to get into as well. That I know at least two of us on here have a lot of thoughts on it, and I also, before we get into, all the news and all that stuff, I did watch the first two episodes of that new Yakuza live action adaptation by Nihon Toitsu. And I do want to talk a little bit about that because I was one of the brave souls that watched the Amazon live action adaptation that came out, was it last year or the year before? And very remarkable how within at least the last year or two, we've had two live action adaptations for Yakuza. So we'll get into that as well. So yeah, I guess leading the charge here, I'm the one here who played Crimson Desert, but I did not review it. Scott White, for us, did his review in progress, and I don't blame him for doing a review in progress because this game is freaking large. It is a long game. It is a big game. It is a fascinating game for in a lot of aspects. But of course, we're not going to publish a review if we're not completely done with the story at the very least.
Yeah, so I went to the so for review code for this game, basically if you requested code, they actually asked people to like sit in on like a quick 15-minute free briefing of like the game before they gave code out, just to kind of explain like what it was and length and tips and things like that. And they actually basically even said, for the review period, try not to just wander the world and explore and get lost because this game is long and the release date's coming up and they wanted people to like complete the game before finishing. So I guess my point is that I do not blame and actually kind of appreciate that Scott did not rush to put out a scored review yet. This is like they're even telling people like you should probably just mainline it, and if you want to get a review or get the game done before review. But also, I think and people have talked about this, that's also a little bit different than how you would like naturally play a game like this. I'm not saying no one mainlines games like this, but really this big open world, multifaceted game, just Scott decided I'm just going to take my time with it. I can write up some thoughts on what I thought so far. And, he'll come back later for a scored review, which is definitely better than, just kind of rushing to the end as fast as possible. So.
Of course, like to all the brave and reviewers out there who did go out of their way, whether it was like mainlining it or getting at least some side stuff done before finishing it, like that's no like shade to anyone who got out a review on release date because the different outlets operate differently. Yeah,
it is what it is. Like
exactly.
Review code came out 2 weeks before launch, and people had to either beat it in that time or decide not to. And Scott made the decision not to, and just kind of do a little bit more extra stuff, and he'll come back to it for a scored review later.
And I'll be putting like I'm about 50 hours into it now, and I'm nowhere near done. Like, I really have to commend the people who were able to get out a review that day, whether it was in progress or scored, because playing this game with a deadline looming on your head feels miserable. I'll be the first to admit that. I did smaller scale guide stuff for the game. I'll probably put another one up shortly, but like I can't even imagine trying to like rush this game because this game it's a as you guys may have known over the years, this is now a third person action adventure game with some RPG progression elements Adam, throughout the years, you've gone on like the chronology of how this game has been described when it was first revealed and how it transformed over time. Where the very early conception of it was like almost a MMO sequel to their other game, Black Desert Online, and that morphed over the years.
Yeah, and it used to have multiplayer. It no longer has multiplayer, right? There's no multiplayer, right? And
Right.
then
Correct.
I actually reminded myself the other day, the main character's name is McDuff, right?
And yeah, the main character's name is Cliff, and he is a set protagonist. There's no character creator. And I think that's one of the at least one thing everyone can agree on is that the story of the main story of this game is pretty dry. And I don't blame people for thinking it's terrible. I'm not a big fan of the story because it's the main setup of this story and why you're doing the things that you're doing in this game is at the very beginning you're part of your Cliff, you're part of this mercenary squad called the Greymanes. They're a pretty elite squad. They get ambushed by this other rival faction called the Black Bears, and due to their ambush, a good chunk of them get killed. A lot of them get separated. Uh, Cliff kind of for it's very vague about this early on. I don't know if they exactly answer it, but he gets resurrected in this via sci-fi esque world or region that's high up above the region or the world of Pywell. It's called the Abyss, and he kind of resurrects in it, and you get exposed to a lot of the sci-fi elements of this game in an otherwise grounded medieval world. In the starting area, at least, other regions of the world are less medieval, but at least in the Hernand region, which is the starting region, fairly medieval.
So the abyss, is that what you called it? The sky
Yes.
area? The sky area is
Yeah.
called the abyss. That's kind of
Yeah.
this is the area that like you see screenshots for it. And it's like almost like floating like ruins, like very ornate type of
Yes.
like design.
Yeah, and then so the after you descend back onto the ground, you're trying to find like all the Gray Main survivors. So a good chunk of, let's say, the first 15 to 20 hours is um trying to get the band back together. And throughout the way, you kind of learn about like the residents of Hernand and like kind of busy work on stuff to do, stuff like that, like very early on um before you get like the wing cloak to glide around. You have like these very mystical and enigmatic main story NPCs to sort of test the character of Cliff, like if he's a good person. And then after very basic tasks of like making sure you're okay, or like making sure that this helping out this child with like a lost cat, this character named Alustin deems Cliff and another character called the White Crow as a good person. So please help them out, with this enigmatic story stuff. Here's a cloak that you can glide around as well, and some tools like the Axiom Force grappling hook um, to help them out. Like okay, and then it goes to a more like more busy work of like, I found a gray mane here, Cliff. Go investigate it, and then you get there. It's like, yep, there sure is a gray mane here. Go do whatever task there is, and then reunite with that gray mane. And eventually, you'll start like this. You'll get a home base at the Howling Hill location, where there's now like a base camp for the gray manes, to start building up facilities and continue to gather more, gray manes that people have spotted in the world. And other than that, it's the story is very it's still, there's still things that happen, of course, like getting back at the Black Bears, after you've gathered up the Gray Manes. And how do you get there? There's another faction that versus the Black Bears. Let's go, like, no, get back our region from them and stuff like that. It goes for, and I can kind of see the aesthetic and the kind of the vision they're going for in the story. Like it's almost a Band of Brothers esque um story where, like, a lot of the Gray Manes are very rough, rowdy, um, very tough. Like, there's not really much to their character except that they're like, they know two things. They know of brotherhood, they know of violence, pretty much. Um, so, and there's, they have these ties with each other. This sort of like blood brothers, and of course there's still some women as part of this mercenary group as well, and that's all there is to them essentially. Some of them are like more violent, the others, some of them are more gung ho about resorting to violence instead of planning. But other than that, there's not really much flavor on there. And to top it all off, Cliff is just like the most. He's a very dry protagonist. He's a very monotone. Not really. He's kind of like the big brother figure in the sense that like he's more rational than most of them. He can kind of see the bigger picture, but the like his personality is dry bread. Like it's just like very
Bread sandwich.
unremarkable. Yeah, just like lines, responses, conversations. Like, all right, let's go get at him. Okay, uh, uh, get your asses up, etc.
Like extremely straight laced to the point he's a little bit boring.
Yeah. Yes. And that's kind of the thing of like I 100% understand why people wish there was a character creator at least because I wouldn't mind having the set protagonist if he was at least entertaining or at least had an interesting perspective to build off of as you're playing him. But there's really very little to attach onto. The most I can say for this guy is like he's at least level-headed and experienced. Like he can rise up to any situation.
Yeah, like he's at least not a dumbass. But
Yeah, but also he is a little bit of a dumbass in the sense of like mechanics because there are throughout the game you are building up knowledge. So any new region that you come across, you're building up knowledge. You meet a new character you're unfamiliar with, you build up knowledge. Even like Greymanes that like you found, like you'll build up knowledge. You should have already known them, but
by knowledge, do you mean like when I watched a little bit of some people playing the game pre-release? Are those like all the different like checklists of all the different like animal life
yeah, things you
and
can find. Yeah, like collectibles.
locations?
Like
Okay,
yeah, pretty much.
it seemed like almost like literally every single thing in this game is cataloged to some degree.
Right.
And if you're like a completionist type player, this game feels like a very very tall hurdle in terms of all the different things that you have to, all the different knowledge, I guess, to find in the
Yeah,
game.
and using the term knowledge is funny because like when you go to a shop, some of those shops have question marks over them, like some shop items. So you go hover them and wait for about like 3 seconds for the bar to fill up, and then it shows this was a pitcher of water, or oh, this was a jug. And it's like, really, Cliff, you didn't know that this was a fucking pitcher of water? It's like, so that's like it's just like it's very like I said, a lot of this game is very much busy work and the I'm not gonna say it's busy work for the sake of busy work because some people like busy work, some people like checklists and all that stuff. So that's totally fine. But it's like I feel like at least even for those instances, like why does it take like 3 seconds to fill out that bar? Why is it like half a second? Why does it have to like stuff like that? And you know that's whatever. Ultimately, in that regard, I think one of the bigger hurdles that both reviewers and people have been coming across is the controls for this game. Personally, like I got used to them, and I know a lot of people and reviewers did get used to them. But there's a lot of you have to. It'll take some time to learn it, for sure. Like the controls aren't rebindable, and like your control, like for controller, for example, the square button is at square or X, whether you're on PlayStation or Xbox, and then like to do a lot of other stuff, it's like if you want to sprint, do a double tap on AX, and you don't have to keep tapping it. It'll maintain that sprint until you run out of stamina or stop manually. But if you're on a horse and you want to sprint with that, you have to keep on tapping X. So even like stuff like that is like non-universal. It's like everything seems to have its own rule set. Nothing is like consistent with one another in that regard. And stuff like extending your jump, like double jump, you unlock your skill tree, costs mana to do. But there are you can extend that jump by force palming in the air up to like 3 or 4 times to extend that jump. But that's something that you learn on your own. The game will never tell you that you can do that. You just kind of stumble into it, and that's kind of a lot of this game as well, in terms of like it'll never, a lot of people will talk about yellow paint in other video games, for example, or like things that are highlighted for them to kind of point them the right answer, or like having companion characters to keep on blabbering about the answer every 5 seconds. You don't solve it, stuff like that. And while this game, in contrast, is very hands off. I wouldn't say it doesn't give you any clues because there's definitely some messages in the center that will give you vague directions of like what you should do, like go find the device, check your surroundings, stuff like that. But it's never explicit about what you have to do in terms of like marking things in the environment, like a yellow arrow that says go, interact with this thing. But there is still some like you do have to figure things up on your own if you unless there's like a million guides for this game already. You can always like pull up a browser to go find it as well and have that video. But it's not present in the review process at
Yeah,
all.
I've seen people
Obviously.
discuss, how sometimes the objectives are a little bit obtuse in terms of what are you supposed to be doing here. It might point you to like a vague area, like a bar or something, but who you have to talk to or what exactly you have to do to actually progress, it's not so clear cut. Um, which is maybe sometimes in one way a good thing in terms of it's not just pointing you exactly to the right person you need to talk to, but also a little bit obtuse in terms of sometimes it seems unintuitive. And also your note on
Yeah.
your comment on the controls. I saw someone post the Call of Duty meme where instead of press F to pay respects, it's like press L1 to bring up the reticle, aim at the casket, then press X to bring up focus mode, and then
Mhm.
press this, and then hold L2 and press R3 to pay respects. I just saw someone post that meme in
And
Crimson
you even
Desert
like noted
style.
in like your pre-release previews as well when you played at SGM, like to pick up this pillar and put it onto like this pedestal to raise the banner. You've laid out step by step the process, like what the controls are to do that, and like it's
It's a
it's one
lot
of
for
those
some
things like
reason.
yeah, and not to say that like it's necessarily bad, it's different, and but it's you have to learn its language, and then once you're there, it'll feel natural to you because you've done it for so many times. But everything feels like it takes six more steps than what it needs to be when like in any other game it takes two steps to get to that same result. And that's not being a hardcore game for the sake of being hardcore because there's more steps to it. That's just like the game is like at this weird crossroads where it wants to be part action game, part simulation game, part survival game. So there are elements of those other genres that creep into this action game that sometimes is to its detriment, like the weightiness and sometimes the deliberate non-responsiveness of like in a simulation or survival game to kind of emulate those deliberate actions don't translate well to this game. Like when I'm in a boss encounter and I'm facing the boss and I have a full stamina bar and I want to swing my sword, like do a heavy slash. When I press right trigger to do that, sometimes it won't come out. And maybe it's because Cliff was like still trying to finish his animation of like the dodge roll. So if you try to press that attack button while you're still recovering from that dodge roll, you have to let it finish that animation before he's able to perform that action. And then there's even like some parts where like there's like an attack string after that heavy attack when you press it multiple times, and then my first attack will come out, but not the other attacks. And then now I'm thinking, okay, why isn't it coming out? I have a full stamina bar. I stopped stamina to do this. Is it because of the range of that enemy? Are they like too far away from me? So that's why it's not triggering that next part. Um, or is it because like I'm in soft lock or hard lock and something about the angle that I'm approaching them at to start this attack? Is that why it's not coming out? Like I thought like I was like going insane of like is it just me or like does this game's controls like feel very non-responsive at times, and seeing that more and more people are experiencing that, I'm like, okay, I'm not insane then, because like this is just integrated into design. It's not like a bug or anything, at least until they fix it. That's just how it is. Mikhail, you wanted to say something?
I've heard like conflicting stuff about the controls where people have said it's like Red Dead Redemption 2, but then I've heard others say it's like, when you press a button, they say that the action on the screen happens after you release the button, not when you actually press it. Like there's that much delay in some stuff. Are you actually seeing it like that?
I definitely feel like I don't. The action doesn't come out after I let go of the button. It's not it's not like a negative edge situation. When I press down the button, the action does come out. So it's not off of like releasing it, but there is definitely, I don't know what's going on in terms of like the game's logic or like what it's prioritizing, the way that it's registering inputs. But there will be times where just like I want to attack a boss that's clearly has an opening in front of me, and when I press an attack button, it doesn't come out, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have to wait for the next opening then because the game didn't want to attack. Okay, that's great. So that sucks.
I have a question for you, Josh. Is
Yeah.
there like a PC controls with keyboard? I feel like it's supposed to be like an MMO designed first. Maybe that's why the controls may be awkward.
People fucking hate the mouse and keyboard controls in this game. That is what I've been hearing. Like everyone hates the mouse and keyboard controls, and a lot of people just like immediately went to controller.
I think they recommended controller. Like they literally for reviewers are like, we recommend playing this game with controller. But also, I hear controllers are not rebindable.
Yep, sure is. So it's also weird where the state of this game, the game that reviewers are playing pre-release, is not the same game that people are now currently playing, and I'll elaborate what I mean by that. Um, During the pre-release process, there was like one significant update added to it that added a lot more inventories, like starting inventory slots. Like at the very beginning, before it was patched pre-release, people started like with 20 inventory slots. Then that patch added an additional 30, so you started with 50 with it. There was also they also added the functionality to summon the other playable characters, which I'll get into in a bit, to assist you. Um, that I have not been able to even like touch that yet because the other character that I could play as has been unavailable doing their own thing for like the last maybe 15 hours in my game. I don't know why. I just it always says unavailable when I hover over it, or main quest, and then the name of that main quest, and that they're doing their own thing.
The world doesn't
Like,
revolve
okay,
around you. Let them do their own
that's
thing.
true. So true.
Oh no, it's a
And,
Genshin problem.
and and the way that the fast travel points were distributed is definitely not like what people see today when they're playing is not how it was pre-released. Like there's a fast travel point at Howling Hill Camp, the home base, now in the released version. That was not there pre-release. So every time you wanted to go back to your Howling Hill Camp base, you had to go pick one of two fast travel points that you unlocked that were at least 300 to 400 meters out from it. So every time you wanted to go back there, you'd have to go to one of those fast travel points and then, traverse that distance instead of like immediately fast traveling right to it. And you need to go back to that Howling Hill camp a lot in the game. Um, uh, and then the fast travel point at the main starting Hernan village or town, that fast travel point was moved. It used to be at the north of that town, a bit outside it, just outside the castle walls. So you start to traverse maybe 200 to 250 meters to like get to the tavern, for example. Um, while in the release version, it's like at the heart of that town, and you only have to like maybe travel 30 meters to get to that tavern. And you're thinking that seems minuscule. It's like no, that adds up because you have to people who have played this for a good chunk already know how many times you have to traverse back to Hernan and Howling Hill. And if you're playing it pre-release, um, those fast travel points were always just inconvenient enough to really start grading on you as you're putting dozens and dozens and dozens of hours into the game.
Tell me if this is valid or not, but that reminds me of Dragon's Dogma 2, it's the Beastman City, Batal. Like, it didn't have a warp stone or whatever those were called, like, at first, and they eventually added one in. sort of like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
Okay.
This problem is expounded even more so in Crimson Desert because of the scope of it, but it's
And also in like
basically like
Dragon's
the same
Dogma,
way.
you could set your own
Yeah.
fast travel point, which I feel like was the whole point of that to begin with in Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I asked if it was valid. It was like, in any other game, like, oh, here's a major city, you would expect there to be a fast travel point, and they're like, nope. In this one, you either have to fast travel like nearby, use the ox cart, or put your own there. Like, it kind of made that decision. But then eventually they relented and like, nah, we'll just add one.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my other big disappointments with this game is how they treat the additional playable characters, in the sense that like one of the first ones you unlock fairly early in, the Damien, or Damian, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her name. It switches to them when you switch to them. It's done via GTA 5 style, so it zooms out of the whole world and then zooms back in on them, so you could be at another point in the world and they're doing their own stuff. But their usage is fairly limited because they can't do any of the main story stuff. That's only for Cliff. So if you try to enter a main story thing with them, the game will just freeze and tell you, "Hey, you must switch to Cliff, or we'll switch to Cliff for you for this, but just know you can't play as this character. You have to play as Cliff." Like, okay, sure. So a lot of the tough, important battles and bosses in the game require Cliff, and the your skill items, like the items that you consume to on your skill tree to level up, your like new moves for your character, or like new abilities, um and even investing into like health, stamina and spirit. um I don't know if the health and stamina spirit transfer over to the other characters, or if that was like in a patch or something. I don't remember that being shared, but it might be shared now. But for the abilities that you learn, it's definitely not shared. So if I invest all these skill items into Damien, and she has all these cool moves, and then it's time to switch back to Cliff, he doesn't have any of those moves. He doesn't have any of like those items refunded to like to distribute for his skill tree. No, you have to kind of start from scratch with Cliff then, on that. So it just disincentivizes you to even build up those characters, because as far as I've seen so far, there's very little like incentive to switch at them. There's like the one-off like side activity or side quest that like requires that other playable character. Like for Damien, there's like a shooting contest with a pistol, and Cliff uses arrows and bows, and she uses a pistol, so he can't do that activity, but Damien can because she has a pistol. Um, so stuff like that, like very like small one-off things require them, but for everything else, especially main story stuff, it requires Cliff. You know, uh, so it just gives you no incentive to really play as them, and it's like that kind of sucks. You can sure you can, but in the long run, in the long term, you'll have to do those fights with Cliff, and that's that. And sure,
Yeah, I see what you're getting at in terms of just that extra character. Just it feels like just almost more work to get to work with it. To basically customize them how you want when you have to use Cliff anyway.
yeah,
So it kind of just feels like, well, just use Cliff, even
yeah.
though you may want to use another character, you kind of have to use Cliff.
Um, but like there's like, I don't know. There's like so many things in the game that like I do have like that range from minor to major nitpicks of it. But overall, I one of the big things that I think you really can't take away from it is its visuals. Like, it is definitely one of the prettier open world games I've seen in a while. Like, I'm not a big graphics person. I guess over the years of people I've been listening here, like, I don't really care for graphics. I care more about gameplay and like how is the game fun to control and progress through. And visuals are usually not high in my priority in terms of like what determines enjoyment for me personally. But this game is one of those few games in a generation where I constantly am awed at what it pulls off visually and performance wise. Like, the draw distance in this game is pretty much second to none, and at times, for better or for worse, this game feels like a tech demo. Of course, there's like a lot of mini game elements and a whole ass game to play through it, but it is a good tech demo for that Black Space engine and what its capabilities are in terms of like, hey, it supports really crazy draw distances, and you can still maintain a pretty good frame rate. On top of that, there is still some pop in here and there that you'll notice for sure. Like it feels like inevitable and it gives the scope and size. But in general, it runs like at a solid like 65 to 80 FPS for me out of the open world with mostly high settings. Um, no ray tracing. I have a 3080. And it does like dip down to like say 35 to 40 FPS. I get very, 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 very busy spots. Like if I like have to like if there's like a very like if there's like a burning town and I'm fighting off dozens of enemies all at once on the screen, it'll dip in performance there. But in general, it maintains that, and you can see it's a very like it just looks very very nice on the eyes. It's very vibrant. It's very lively in terms of like its environments. It's like when it's windy, you can see the trees sway, the grass, sway.
Speaking of grass, I remember people
Yeah,
pointing out that like sometimes the color of the world, especially the grass, seems a little bit off, but there's like a setting that you can choose that makes it render more realistically. Are
yeah.
you
There's
familiar with this?
there's this so there's that's not the reconstruction
Oh, okay.
setting that you toggle on depending on like if you have DLSS or FSR
Okay.
on, but it's at the cost of like a lot of performance.
Okay.
So I don't think I can handle that and maintain like a solid frame rate. Like I think some people reported like if you turn this on and you can technically support it, you're losing anywhere between like 30 to 40 frames.
Yeah, that's
Like, okay, I don't want
It's
that.
not that much. Like
Okay.
the Digital Foundry video said it was like 10 to 15%, which is a lot, but the visuals, if you're using the ray tracing anyways, it is a pretty massive difference from what they showcased, especially on NVIDIA. Apparently it's not great for AMD users, or I guess specifically RDNA 4 users, because the way that works, it's very aliased for whatever
You're kind
reason.
of you're kind of drifting off from your mic, so you sound
Yeah,
distant.
sorry. Um, But yeah, I haven't been playing it, but from what I've seen, yeah, if you have a high-end system, using ray reconstruction is worth it just because it drastically improves the lighting and shadows for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if I have my system can. I'm too scared to like turn that on and like to see things drop dramatically. But but I've definitely heard like hearsay of like people who tried it. They say they lost a lot of frames turning it on. So mileage may vary. Speaking of mileage may vary on terms of hardware, if you have an Intel GPU, forget it. they
And
the
apparently it was the devs being assholes because Intel like reached out to them multiple, like they, at least Intel says they reached out to them multiple times over the years saying, hey, do you need a card to test the game on? Do you need help with development? And then the game comes out and they didn't even mention this prior to release. They didn't even say it in the system requirements. They waited until the game was out to say Intel's not supported. We're just going to block it from launching. People have found out how to bypass that, by the way.
like after that bypass.
Yeah.
Okay,
does it work at
that's
all?
the
Yeah, there's like a DLL swap that apparently works. I don't know about actual performance, but it's playable. So
Okay.
but it is pretty a really really bad move on their part to like hide that info up until launch. It's like so people have to find that on their own, and then they put up an FAQ, stay like release the FAQ saying if you have an Intel GPU, please refund the game. It's like
yeah,
why did you not say anything before launch? That's crazy.
normally I wouldn't necessarily just take the GPU manufacturer's word for it, but considering how they handled this, no, I think Intel's telling the truth. They probably did reach out, and for whatever fucking reason, they just hate Intel. That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah. There's also been some other post-release supports when people started to dig up, like some of like the paintings that people have seen in the world, and that some of those, like there's strong evidence based on like those paintings in the game that look like they might have been done via generative AI. Like for example, one of them had like horses in them, and the horses like anatomy was all fucked up in a way that is very apparent in generative AI. So these, of course, are the developers have neither confirmed nor denied their use of generative AI in the game. That is something to worthy of note, that there is already evidence saying that there might be usage of generative AI in this game. Albeit in smaller scoped ways, it's still in there. So that sucks, if that's true. Um, let's see. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. There's a lot of this game I'm trying to remember.
How are the bosses?
The bosses go from they're not great. In general, they're not great. Some of them are okay in terms of like it's a fun, challenging fight that took a few times to get through, but learning the fight, eventually I prevailed. But there a lot of the design is like it can kind of be frustrating because this game, unlike most modern action games these days, this game kind of puts the onus on the player to be as prepared as possible on bosses that seemingly can pop up at any time, whether it's through a side quest or main story. Because the health recovery in this game is all done through food, and you can, of course, you can cook food, you can buy food, but it expects players to, you know, if a boss fight is happening and you're going through it, you have to. It's on you to make sure you have the resources on hand to get through it. So there'll be bosses where I've had to consume like over 50 food items to kind of push through it. Um because they did so much damage throughout the course of the fight. Of course, a lot of these smaller food that I was consuming like in vast amounts like only healed like maybe a fifth of my HP, while there's like higher quality food items that heal more. But in general, there'll people will come to a point in the game, whether it's like the Reed Devil boss fight or some other boss fight, they will come to understand, hey, I really should be taking my both recovery items seriously and my health bar seriously. In terms of like, I should really be investing my skill items into upgrading my health bar, because like this game is it's challenging both on the bosses themselves can be very aggressive and be very like zip all over the place. Like the side boss that I was fighting yesterday for like well over an hour, um, had very damaging attacks and drained my stamina when any of its attacks hits. And there was a common attack sequence where it teleported multiple times, slashed, teleported, or the slashed, turned invisible, then slashed for a split second, like it reappears for a split second to slash, and then like the final one, it turns invisible, and that's like a big uppercut that like deals like all of your health. And the game expects you to like, hey, if you want to overcome these boss fights, you have to be both well prepared and be ready for some bullshit, because a lot of these fights, like, they're very aggressive. They'll do a lot of damage if you're hit, and some of them are unconventional in the sense that like sometimes they won't even have like a corporeal form to them. Some of these bosses are like, hey, it's a cube that's floating in the air, surrounded by red mist. Figure out the fight. Good luck. Pretty much.
Sonic Gundam. Sorry.
And
I was gonna ask you, Josh. It's like,
Uh-huh.
did you join their Discord, like the Crimson
No.
Desert Discord? Because
No,
I heard that they had that posted message or some kind of PSA saying that, oh, everyone's gonna get walled in this fight or something. Please be level 5 before you progress or something. And that reviewer happens to be that level because he was busy like exploring the entire world before going there or something like that. I'm not sure which boss it is, but it's pretty early, I think. But
might be
I actually
might be
have
the
to.
redouble. Yeah, but
But yeah, they had a reviewer Discord, and I know Scott joined it. I don't know if he did anything in there, but I think you're about to say what I'm about to say. Like, I don't typically, I don't think I ever have joined like a reviewer Discord, which is supposed to be like, to be clear, these are pretty normal. If you're listening to this and like, reviewer Discord, what's that? It was meant to be, hey, what they wanted was, I guess I should put it this way. They didn't want someone to get stuck and be like, I have no idea what to do. I'm a reviewer. I can't just look it up. What do I do? It was meant to be like help each other if people get stuck or like we're trying to figure out something. That's what it was for. But Josh didn't join it, and I probably wouldn't unless I had like no other recourse.
Yeah, like
I just joined these for like fighting games or like online games because you kind of need to
Yeah.
have some sort of community like Monster Hunter or whatever.
yeah, like Monster
setting
Hunter
up
was gonna bring
runs
up.
and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I don't know about single player stuff. I've seen it happen. Like it's pretty normal, like you said. But I usually only join them if I've run into like a bug or some issue and I need some help. Like it makes sense for that. Otherwise, I usually don't bother with it. So
Yeah. So for me, like my obviously, like I said, I was not reviewing the game or playing the game for review. I'm mainly smaller scope guide stuff, but I'm a person that my philosophy is like I need to be able to figure out the game on my own, in order to make this happen because I generally don't want, like, I feel like if I get outside help, unless it's like progression blocking or like some game breaking bug, like usually like it's up to the developers to craft the game on how they want normal players to proceed. And I'm gonna assume the normal player for this game will play it blind for the most part and try to figure out stuff on their own. Of course, there'll be other players who search up a lot of guides and what's the best thing to do this and how to do this. But in general, I generally like to figure things out on my own in that regard. Um, let's see what else. I think Adam, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the podcast, but the general pocket atmosphere about this game is a little weird. I kind of I look at when I still perceive video games as video games in the sense that like when a game comes out, I understand that sometimes a game is not for everyone. Certain people will gravitate towards this game, certain people won't. It doesn't have to be the second coming of Christ. It also doesn't have to be Satan incarnate. It's okay for this game to not be a universally hot game that everyone loves. I think it getting mixed reviews makes a lot of sense. And it's also weird that people treat mixed reviews, but a lot of them slant towards more positive than negative, as like everyone fucking hates this game because it has like a 78 Metacritic. I'm like, what are we? What reality are we living in?
So, I mean, not to relitigate, the same sorts of conversations that are kind of cyclical in this nature, in this business, but, I feel like having a wide variety of perspectives on a review, like from multiple different outlets is interesting because not everyone values the same things or cares about the same things or like enjoys the same things. So some people might, like I've seen the people who really like Crimson Desert. They just kind of like the open ended nature of it. They're like, yeah, the story is maybe not so great, but they don't really care about that anyway. And like, I think sometimes people are looking for, well, what is it? Is it good or is it not? And it's like, well, it depends on your perspective, and that's why there's multiple reviews from multiple places, so you can get more than one perspective, and they're not all going to agree. If they all agreed, that'd be boring.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also like this happens a lot for many games these days, unfortunately. But there's this divide of people that are like, oh, the content creators on YouTube were right. Like people who are gonna play this game review fucking hate it, and they called it because they're not playing it the way that we are. We respect the content and everything that it offers and stuff like that. And then and then you also have the other side where there's a growing resent. Like people, it's like, oh wait, reviewers, traditional reviewers were like sort of right. Like I don't enjoy this game, and I kind of feel sort of duped by people on who are making maybe on the more content creator influencer side that like I don't know why they're think it's like the hyped it up so much when the more I play this game, the more I kind of see why it got rated the way that it did, and like and for some reason, you know, these two sides, clash in like the most toxic way possible because games just can't be games these days. It has to be all or nothing, and that obviously breeds a very unhealthy atmosphere and perspective about like what the games landscape should be, which is like we acknowledge a game for what we like and dislike, but it's not something that we should like kind of shove onto people.
It's just
It's
been
okay
it's
to
been
not like it.
it's been a nightmare these
Hmm.
days because well, it's always a nightmare, like you just said, but like it's not just the Crimson Desert shit that's annoying recently. It's like I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure you have. A lot of people on Blue Sky are liking Marathon, but apparently a lot of people are really upset that people actually like Marathon. They wanted
Yeah,
that
that's
shit
weird
to
too.
fail.
Like I'm like that's cool that people like marathon. Like that's sick that people like but like something that didn't like seem promising on release actually pulled through and became something people really liked. And like yeah, that's I yeah, I agree with you that like that's weird that like people have an issue with other people liking stuff. Like think about that to yourself. Like that sounds absurd. You are miserable because other people aren't miserable with you. Okay, all right. So yeah, like I think Crimson Desert is a really fascinating game. I think just all in all, it's very ambitious. It's a very like outstanding showcase about the potential of this black space engine and its capabilities. A very strong showcase technically. And the game itself, it's like, you know, I think the best way to put it is like kind of try it out for yourself if you can, and if you're willing to like go like treat it as almost like a demo, at least on Steam, and get a refund if you don't like it, if you're willing to spend that money. If not, like ask other people, ask your friends, ask people that you trust their critique on, and and maybe even reach out, like say, let's say Hayes, for example, like you read his review and you have some questions. I think it would be harmless to say, hey, like of course be civil about it. Say, hey, I have a question about this. Like, how does this game treat this? Like, these people aren't, like something you can't touch. It's like, hey, just if you have the time, like, go reach out to them on social media and just like, hey, ask them, like, hey, I was reading your review and I have some questions. Like, can you answer them on that? Go on, Mikhail.
I'm curious, you mentioned the refund thing. Do you think I can get a good idea about the breadth of the game, at least like in terms of scope within 2 hours, or is it like just you're gonna be shoehorned into like like the Breath of the Wild opening is just restricted and you could spend like quite a bit of time over there. So can you actually like explore around the open world in the opening 2 hours?
Not in the opening 2 hours, but the two answers that you will get in those first 2 hours is, can your system run it, and what settings will you need to have it to get a good performance, and are you okay with these like non-conventional controls? um I think those are the two questions. Other than that, a lot of it is going to be watching videos, reading other perspectives on it. But that's a good point. Like, it's obviously with this game and scope of this size, you won't get a good slice of in terms of like, will I like the overall what this game is going for? You won't go to get those answers in 2 hours. You probably won't get that answer till like maybe 10 to 15 hours in. We'll say. Yeah,
I was just
that's
wondering because like when Borderlands 4 came out, I bought it to like write about it on Steam Deck, and it ran like such dog shit. I just refunded it before the 2 hours got over, and like I gave up on it. So I was
hmm.
wondering if I should like do that for Crimson Desert, but like if you don't get to the open world, I can't actually like test it. But I have heard it just is unplayable. So, but yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious about that.
There's definitely a footage of Steam Deck of it running on Steam Deck, and that obviously that Steam Deck and Crimson Desert, surprise, surprise, don't really gel well. Maybe on the next proper Steam Deck, whenever that is in between the next year to 30 years when that comes out. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much Crimson Desert for now. I just think it's an interesting game, and it's gonna be. I think it is at its most it's in its most fun phase right now when everyone is figuring stuff on their own before all the answers of it are like answered immediately. Like there'll be things that obviously reviewers and content creators didn't find when they played it, and people will find out that out organically and say, "Man, I stumbled into some crazy shit," and then share it with their friend circles and communities, and have fun together in that way too. Just have sharing notes with each other, which is always a very fun part of a game's life cycle, in my opinion. Moving on then, from Crimson Desert, we, as I mentioned earlier, Nintendo nonchalantly may have dropped one of the biggest updates they've ever done for the Switch 2, and they didn't say anything about it until it dropped. They added this new feature to Switch 2 called Handheld Boost Mode, which basically lets you run Switch 1 games, and when they're running it in handheld under Switch 2, it is basically running them as if they were running in TV mode on Switch 1 and Switch 2, from what I understand. I'll let Mikhail and James, uh, you know, have a conversation about this because I know them and along with another one of our staff members, Cullen, have been sort of
I've been
raving
playing
about this
Xenoblade
welcome
too
surprise.
because of
Uh,
it.
oh, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, go for it. James, you start off, and then obviously, Mikhail and Chow chime in if you feel like.
This is like the one thing that pretty much everyone wanted at least as an option on Switch 2 at launch, and since it wasn't there, I feel like most people just assumed it was never going to happen. So this being a literal footnote in a random update on a Monday is kind of crazy. But
You know,
yeah,
like you said on a Monday, like before we just go further, I'm just going to give you some background. So this was, I believe, on the same day DLSS 5 stuff happened.
yep. And the Pistol
So
2 update.
yeah, so I woke up to like 20 messages on Discord and like pings on Blue Sky where people were just like saying good luck, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like I have no idea. And I check Discord and I see people saying DLSS 5 is like some AI slop, and I'm like, okay, what happened? And then I actually see Switch boost mode, and I'm like, oh, that explains it. Anyway, continue.
It really was just like that one meme of the three-headed dragon with two of the heads being serious and then one of them being derpy, and it's like the PSSR2 update and Switch 2 boost mode thing, and then DLSS 5, which is a whole another can of worms. But I'm not here to talk about that. Yeah, even if the Xenoblade games don't get a Switch 2 update, if you're going to primarily play them in handheld mode now, they look a lot better. They're still not native 1080p, but they look significantly better on that screen. Xenoblade 2 obviously was the one a lot of people went towards first, myself included, but the rest of the games also look good. Funnily enough, if you're fine with 30 FPS, the better handheld mode experience for Xenoblade Cross is not buying the Switch 2 edition. That's fucked up.
And if you do buy it, I put up a guide on downgrading, quote unquote, because it's a pretty complicated process if you bought it digitally, if you pre-order it. Because, like, I don't know if you have this, but I pre-ordered it on the Japanese eShop and I had this early purchase DLC, which was like some in-game currency and some stuff. So if you actually got that, it causes some problems if you like eject all your DLC because your save file won't load then. So I looked into this whole thing and like figured out and learned a lot. So yeah, I put up a short guide on downgrading and it's helped a lot of people. So that's good.
Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with that, but yeah, there's a lot of games that I was never going to pick up on Switch 1 that I am now very much considering picking up on Switch 1 because of this. I am fine, like, even if we never get a PC port for Tsukihime Remake, I am now going to play it because 1080p in handheld mode is pretty nice, wouldn't you know it?
I'm curious, like, based on like what you guys have played already, like what are the most significant like upgrades like
Fire
this?
Emblem
Like,
Three Houses.
okay,
I'm not
that's
sure, like, Mikhail, would you agree with that, or?
that inherently runs
So
at 60 FPS, right, on Switch too, because
no,
it's
no, no, no,
uncapped.
no. Three
Okay.
Hopes does. Three Hopes is 60,
Oh,
Three Houses is
got it.
30. But there's one thing about Tsukihime Remake. So I actually thought about that as well, and I was like, uh, it's perfect now because like you can play them at 1080 handheld. But here's one thing: when I play visual novels, I love using the touchscreen. This is something which gets disabled when you use boost mode because it treats it like a docked game, and when you use a docked game, touchscreen is disabled. So
True.
any game that uses touchscreen, you can't use the touchscreen anymore. So like if you're playing Etrian Odyssey, it had stylus support where like they even sold a stylus in Japan and stuff. You can't use that if you enable boost mode in Etrian Odyssey on Switch too. So that's like that's the
On the
major like
caveat.
downside to this. The other one is like something which only affects like people, very few people, or people who like need to compare screenshots, which is like me and maybe five other people. But yeah, screenshots using
Or
boost mode are
still
still
be 720.
720p. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's
I
a
ran
Switch
into
One game.
I ran into that with Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, where I was telling people it's like, no, it's definitely running native 1080p now, but the screenshots would still be 720p. So I had to take a photo comparing the two with my camera, and it's like, yeah, no, it's definitely native 1080p now. And I guess it's just the same situation with
Yeah. But yeah,
Tricky.
back to Josh's question about what games have seen the best upgrades. So there's like Three Hopes was already 60 FPS, but now the problem is if you use boost mode, it looks nicer because it runs at higher resolution handheld, but the 60 FPS goes away. As in, it's not locked 60 FPS anymore. So that is another caveat because the switch to using boost mode, some games don't hit the same frame rate that they do when you play them normally. I also ran into this with Dragon Quest Builders 2, where I started a new save file because I didn't want to download my like 1.5 GB save file from like my original one. So I started a new save, and I immediately noticed the frame rate was not like dropping below 60 FPS using boost mode. And the thing with that game is the visuals, it looks good enough without boost mode, so I was like, I would recommend like not using that. So that's another caveat. Some games will not hit their frame rate cap. uh Fire Emblem Warriors, the original one, is like one of the big winners of this because if you remember, that game was 720/30 target handheld, and if you played it docked, you got a 720/60 or 1080/30 target mode. Now, when you play it handheld with boost mode, you actually can get those same options. So you can play it at native 1080p 30, or you can play it at 60 FPS portable for the first time. So that's like a really nice thing. And James mentioned the Xenoblade games. One thing I forgot about completely until this boost mode thing happened is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. In addition to like the resolution bump when you go dock from handheld, it actually had
Space
reflections in the
reflections.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reflections in the water were removed. So now, if you play it with boost mode, not only does it look a lot better, but you get those reflections back. So all these small things like I've been noticing, and like I put up this, it kind of like delayed some of my other articles which I was working on because this was like such an urgent thing. I spent that whole day on it, and I did like 20 games I tested, and I put up comparisons, and I tried to show them as much as possible because, like, 720 screenshots, but using zoomed in and cropped sections, you can tell the difference. So until I like get a better way of like photographing the screen, I think
Yeah,
photographing the screen looks kind of bad. Like, you have to make sure the angle is the same, and you have to use the
I
accessibility
know
options
what.
and zoom in and stuff. It's kind of
Yeah,
annoying.
I noticed Good Vibes Gaming did the same thing where they use the accessibility zoom to really highlight the resolution difference, which is the best way to do it. It just kind of
Yeah, it's
sucks.
the only way to do it right now to show the difference. And the thing is, in some games where the difference is just purely in resolution, even doing that isn't going to be like that good a thing. So like, I just have to like mention that, the upgrade is just resolution. But like with stuff like Pokemon Legends Arceus, because I've now like learned how to do pixel counting without like getting into the upscaling, like just basic pixel counting I've learned. So I've been actually just verifying it like that. Like even Persona 4 Golden, that game was already 60 FPS on Switch 1, but now when you play it on boost mode, you're getting native 1080 60 on Switch 2 handheld, which is like a nice upgrade. Persona 5 Royal is kind of still ugly. I wouldn't really play it on Switch 2 handheld. Like, there's some games like, going back to what Josh said, like there's so many big RPGs which came out on Switch 1, which I was like tackling slowly, testing them. The other winner, which I think is like very notable, is Tales of Vesperia, which I covered in my article, because that is now straight up 60 FPS now again, and you get much better visuals. So I have a like I made a list of a lot more, and I've already like downloaded about I think 24 more games, and I was like, I think I need a 2 terabyte SD card express now because like suddenly the Switch to like I don't need to use my Switch OLED anymore because all my like the retro games like G Darius HD, the arcade archives games, I just don't play them on Switch 2 because they look like ass handheld with the upscaling for pixel art or like those old games. So now I can actually play them and they look fantastic. Like playing Darius Gaiden is amazing on it suddenly. So I'm gonna like run into the SD card limits again. So uh trying to think of what else was like super notable in like Dragon Quest 11. I tested that, got a nice upgrade. It's still not as nice as playing it on like Steam Deck or like a PC handheld, but it's like very nice over there. Monster Hunter Stories 2 looks a lot nicer. Monster Hunter Rise does, but it's kind of like you're not getting much out of it because it's like 720 30 now and it was like sub 720 before or whatever. So I don't know, like it's good to have like a better looking handheld version because my main save is still on Switch. Like I think I have like 900 hours or whatever. But like it's a little like balancing this like in my head is like like some of these games get nice upgrades for people who have it here, but for many of them it's like you have better versions on other platforms. So I try to like focus on the games which uh delivered a better experience here than they do on other platforms as well. So like James mentioned, Tsukihime remake is one I'm tackling for the next article because it's just not on PC, so it makes sense, and now you have like a fantastic thing. But then like Fata Morgana is also a thing. Like that game I've played exclusively using the touchscreen when I beat it on Switch. Now I'm gonna have like like I have to decide whether I want to have touchscreen controls or have crisp visuals. So all these things. So like hopefully like when I do like a next update and like I do more updates for this, I'm gonna like start putting notes on each of the games. So like if you enable boost mode, you get like whatever crisp resolution, but you lose some features. And one thing which is a bit weird, Nintendo blacklists some games from using boost mode if they default to motion or pointer controls. So Pokemon Snap, like new Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Let's Go, and Mario Maker 2, you can't use boost mode at all. Like regardless of what, like if you even if you like enable the like start the game and move to button controls, you just cannot use boost mode in these games. So I'm hoping they like I don't know if you have a pro controller too, but they have those paddles at the back and they let you map those on a per game basis, like by holding the home
Yeah.
button. So I hope they like in a future update to the system, I hope they enable the boost mode toggle as something like, because I have it enabled by default when I play, except for testing when I switch it off. So it would be good to have it like this because I don't want to use boost mode when I play Fire Emblem Three Hopes because I want 60 FPS handheld. So having an option to like disable it on a per game basis would be nice. But honestly, like this update it's like such a good update. Like I joked about this on Blue Sky, like the boost mode update made up for Mario Tennis Fever. Like that's what I posted. So yeah, like I'm just so happy with this update right now that I'm overwhelmed by how many games I'll be replaying and how many games I'll be testing for like articles. So but yeah, like feel free to ask me about other stuff because I've tested like I counted 47 games so far.
Jesus, it's gonna be an ongoing thing. I feel like so.
Yeah, for
That's a
sure,
good,
for sure.
yeah. So good first impressions on that. Chow, you said you were messing around with it with Xenoblade 2. You said.
Yeah, I don't think the OG game was playable in handheld mode. I always had to play on TV, and I think 2 was the one that suffered the most from it. And oh boy, it's finally playable. I can finally like maybe might even replay it. You know, so
Yeah,
that's my
yeah. Maybe I'll wait for a definitive edition for Switch. I mean, like a Switch 2 update, rather, and hopefully that doesn't, uh, you know, sort of ruin it like they did for Xenoblade X. But yeah, I'd be interested in revisiting that game if it ran at 60 FPS. But it's cool that like it's actually playable in handheld now. Because back then that didn't look
it
great.
was so blurry when you play on
Yeah.
handheld, and all the texture looks like missing everything. So you have to play on a dock, in my opinion. I don't know why this option's not a thing, but I'm glad it's here. You know, it finally gives like the Switch 2 like way more value now, right?
I'm trying to think like what if this was like a launch feature, like they actually launched with this feature on Switch 2. Huh. It's just such a weird update, like out of
I
nowhere.
also find options pretty hidden too. I had to dig through reading like several posts to get the proper instruction. They pretty much hide it.
Oh, really?
Like you had to look for like go for the system menu, look for this. I don't even know that's the right option. I had to read like Twitter to be like, is this the right option? I don't know. I feel the options are pretty hidden. Like if you're like really not into tech, I think it's like you probably would miss out this update in
It
my
makes
opinion.
sense that they did it this way because like this is a very non-Nintendo thing for them to add, so they probably want to keep it just for like quote unquote power users or whatever.
Yeah, it's
But yeah, like
features, you know.
yeah, like the two more, like three more games actually. I'll just quickly go through. One of them is Theatre Rhythm Final Bar Line, no PC port. Now it's 1080 60 handheld, so that's like notable. The other one is 100 Line Last Defense Academy. Like this game looked like dog shit on Switch. The portraits, like it was awful because in general, I think the way they handled portraits in that game was really bad because it zoomed out and it just looked distorted. And when you played it on Switch, it looked even worse. And when you play the Switch 1 version on Switch 2, it had this double distorted thing. So I just thought it was really bad, like handheld. Now it's to the point where I can tell someone, yeah, you can play it handheld on Switch 2 if you want to use boost mode. So like that got a massive upgrade. And the last one is Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. I thought this was like a fantastic looking remake when I played it, but now it's like it just looks so nice in handheld at native res. Like even the UI is not like blurry anymore. So these were like notable stuff. I have like a lot others. Like I tested Nier Automata and stuff. So yeah, you can read that long article, which is going to be updated like every week or so when I get time. So yeah, like
That'd be
those
interesting
lots.
because moving forward, for games that come out on Switch 1 and Switch 2, there'll be consideration, almost like the PS4 and PS5 situation, where there might possibly be future games that are maybe preferable to run on Switch 1 boost handheld mode over its
I mean
maybe
that
native
that that
Switch
is the
2.
case. It is the
Yeah.
case with No Sleep for Kaname Date because that was already the case at launch. Like the only way you could get 60, like that was a, remember there was a Switch 1, Switch 2 and PC only game at launch. So
Yeah.
if you were playing it on Switch 1, like I had both Switch 1 and Switch 2 to cover, and it did not run at 60 FPS on Switch 2. It had constant hitching, but if you play the Switch 1 version on Switch 2, you got 60 FPS. So that already happened over there. I That is a good point though. I should revisit that and see if it actually looks better than the Switch 2 version now handheld because that'll be super funny.
Yeah, because it happens more often than you think with like the PS5 versions of
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
PlayStation PlayStation games being sort of worse
Yeah,
than
Elden Ring was
PS4
like the
version.
notorious. The notorious one was like Elden Ring, obviously, because I think I believe even now the only way you can get like a locked 60 FPS without any hitching is the PS4 version on PS5 because you still have shader issues on PC, like with
Right,
the Tree
yeah.
Sentinel. So like it's insane that, and Night Rain ran even worse than that. I don't know what FromSoft, just like their tech keeps getting worse, but yeah, like that's a good point because cross-gen games are going to be a thing. So like now you know the whole dev kit issue where indies weren't able to get dev kits, like now this just solves the problem. Like two of the most notable games from the indie world showcase last year, which was Caves of Cud and UFO 50, both were Switch 1 games only, and both are these like retro pixel style games, and they had issues on Switch like 2 because the scaling was weird. Now it's immediately fixed, so like if they never get Switch 2 upgrades, I don't care, like it's fixed. So this is going to help indies a lot.
Yeah, in a
Like
weird way,
you
like they
yeah
sort of, yeah, as you mentioned, they kind of almost quote unquote solve the SDK supply issues to indies by
yeah
through this
yeah
feature, which is
Do you remember
eh,
Shinobi Art of Vengeance? Like, 2D games like that, like all of
yeah.
them had issues on Switch 2 because they had to like render low resolution and upscale, they don't work well. But like now it's immediately fixed. Like I tried Shinobi, now it's perfect handheld. Like even Ninja Gaiden, Ragebound, like all these games which were Switch 1 only, immediately fixed. So it's gonna make me use the Switch 2 a lot more because like I moved to Steam Deck for these games because I don't want to play upscale blurry stuff. So yeah, that's good.
Life-changing feature on a Monday. Okay. Thank you for the first early insight, Mikhail, James, and Chow on this. That'll be, like I said, an ongoing thing. As you know, this is now a thing that lives in our lives, and it's gonna be gonna be an ongoing thing for the lifespan of the Switch too. Um, Next up, I did watch the first 2 episodes of the Yakuza live action Nihon Toitsu adaptation. There's a new live action adaptation of the first Yakuza game that is completely separate and different from what Amazon Video did, which is much more almost Hollywood esque. A lot of money put into it, production to very mixed results. I remember discussing on it here when I watched that, and it was very m- misguided in certain ways. I didn't really like it all that much, though there is some nice parts about it. But overall, I felt it was like just really misguided and very much evident that like, hey, the people who are making this feel like they don't really like the games. On the other hand, this new live action adaptation, which first aired in Japan and then it was brought over officially in the West via IGN, like they put it up on their YouTube with English subtitles. So I watched the first 2 episodes with friends.
That's interesting.
Yeah. um, that it's exclusive to them. But it's a really, really remarkable adaptation that is you can tell that the budget for it is very much not on the scale of that as that Amazon live action adaptation. It's the resources that they were working with were drastically not on that scale, and they really made the most out of it. You can tell like there was a lot of put a lot of heart into it by creators. The ones who were running this clearly had an admiration and appreciation for the source material. Like the adaptation sometimes like uses like actual video game uh like like the graphics from the Kawami remake. Sometimes they use the backgrounds as sort of like the backdrop of like when Kiryu is running from one place to another. The actor is like on a treadmill in front of a green screen, and that green screen has like just the background from like the Kawami remake to sort of emulate that he's traveling there from place to place. One of the really funny uh first early bits that they showed was after Kiryu comes back to Kamurocho after being released from prison for over 10 years, taking the fall for um, Nishiki over the death of Sohei Dojima. He comes back to Kamurocho, and the first thing that happens is he runs into like NPCs that like are like offering him stuff like in the games, like whether it's like napkins or like they're trying to do like some promo stuff on the streets, and like when you interact with them in the game, it's just like you hear the text box and like the typing of like the words being written out in the text box, and the usual exchange between like Kiryu and that character are like just like very like quips of like like Kiryu saying Soka, like saying I see, or like the NPCs going like just a very it's they're voicing the greeting but not exactly what's said in the dialogue box. It's just like to communicate, hey, they're talking to each other. So they emulate that in the adaptation where a dialogue box appears for that bit with that whole like almost typewriter sound effect of them exchanging, and then they do like their little bits, and then the presentation of it is it's like the live action actors over the green screen of the video game background, and then the overlaid on top of those live action actors is that dialogue box. So it looks like almost a visual novel game exchange, but with live action models as the portraits talking to each other, which is really it's the novel. Like I've never really seen it quite like that before, and it's like very endearing in that aspect. Um, there's also just like funny bits, like they kind of do a jab at like the Majima Everywhere system that was added onto Kiwami, where there's a part where Kiryu is exiting Serena into like the familiar backplot down the stairwell of that, and as after he beats up like a few thugs that were messing with him, there Majima is hiding inside like an oversized safety cone, and he's like, oh, I see, like you're not really like you're still skin and bones. You're not there yet. Here's a stamina. Take one with you and come back to me when you're in a better shape to fight me. So he like gives her like a bottle of stamina right then and there. Just like okay, this is absurd. Um, just the way that like everything comes together, even though it's working with a lot less resources than the previous live action adaptation, is so it's remarkable. They didn't like build like a whole full set the way that like the live action adaptation did. Right? They actually like built out like a whole large scale like rendition of Kamurocho, like especially that plaza. It's not they didn't like remake the whole entirety of Kamurocho, but like let's say like the central plaza, like at the northwest part of Kamurocho. Like they made a big deal about like recreating that and all the resource supports put into it. Meanwhile, this adaptation is very laser focused on like very small studio sets. So like Serena, for example, like they rented out a place for to do like its stage shooting on there. But then like other places like in the back alley, you can kind of tell they're shooting it from a certain angle because they're probably filming this at like a studio set with a very limited scope. So like they can't veer the camera off too much to the side because it'll show, hey, this is actually on a set, not actually like in a real place, that like in time. So but they're very confident in the way that they do their camera compositions because there's still reflective surfaces on these scenes. Like there's a big mirror at Serena by the barkeep. There are some like reflective surfaces during conversation scenes that like you can like they're not afraid for having reflective surfaces that might like break the illusion on accident that like, hey, there's the camera man right there or the studio production right there in that regard. And the actors just really nail their role the way like some of them don't necessarily look like their counterparts, in-game counterparts, which is fine because they nail like kind of the whole like soul of that character. They know like how they speak, how they act, how they want to portray them, and it's very faithful to to like the main narrative of the first Yakuza game. Like it's pretty much going like beat by beat main story, almost to like not a fault, but like for example, they go into like the very mini storyline of like the widow of Sohei Dojima. That like in my mind, like they could have easily cut that and not lose a lot, but they decided to include that with her and the katana threatening Kiryu about, hey, did you really kill Sohei Dojima? And it's like, wow, they actually adapted that part. That's crazy, That wasn't really a super important scene in that game, but they decided to do that, and they actually interestingly like almost. I wonder what their future plans are with this because they got such positive reception on this both in Japan and seemingly in the West as well. Um, but they reordered a little bit of these parts, not necessarily in like the events of the first Yakuza game, but like the first meeting with Daigo Dojima happens in the second episode of this live action adaptation, and that event happens at the very beginning of Yakuza 2. So like they brought up that story scene to mesh better as a fallout of meeting with the widow of Sohei Dojima. Um like checking up on Daigo uh and seeing like where he's at in life right now. So I wonder, if this is done to mesh well in potentially a future adaptation of the second game. Not sure. And I'm very eager to see like the final episode sometime either today or tomorrow, with friends. But we are impressed in terms of like it's they do so much with so little, and I think it's a very this is what makes it charming because they poured every single resource into thinking of like how do we make this faithful to what we're portraying. We're not running away from what we're trying to adapt here, which is something that it feels like the Amazon live action adaptation staff like they in prior like pre-release interviews they're like, oh yeah, we never played the game. Yeah, we're just kind of we're making it in a way that we think it should have been done or like our vision of it. And it's like I kind of get it, but that sort of loses the luster and appeal of like why you're making a live action adaptation of this beloved narrative series,
That almost never turns out well. Like, I'd argue that half the reason why the One Piece live action is good is because they didn't ignore what the original was. And
Yeah.
And at the
Yeah.
same time, didn't ignore it's like live action is a different thing. There's different ways to do things to get across the same feelings. So I don't know.
Yeah. So anyone who's like interested, even if you've never played the Yakuza game, I think that's still an interesting sight to behold of like the general like how you produce something with like with very apparent limitations of like the resources that you were given. Like this is like I like this won't be like the prettiest thing in the world. There's like production visuals and all that stuff, but you can see that there was a lot of heart and soul and goddamn effort making sure that like they did a faithful adaptation of that first game. It's really incredible with what they did. I hope this is not like a one and done thing for them. I really hope they do the second game in this style. It's a fascinating project. Each episode is like an hour long, and I think it's 3 episodes for the whole thing. So moving on, we have a lot of articles went up on the site. As I mentioned earlier, Scott White posted his review of Crimson Desert, his review in progress on that. We also have a review by Hayes Madsen about how do you pronounce this? Is it Etrange or Etrange? I don't know how you
Etrange,
pronounce
I
this.
think. I think it's supposed to be French.
Okay, he put up a review for Etrange Overlord, and he thought very very highly of it. I think he was very he really admired it through what he wrote and gave it a score of a 9, which I think even you and I, Adam, I think even that threw us both off guard. Like, oh wow, this has actually turned out to be really really cool for Hayes. Adam, did you have anything like to add, because I know you edited this?
Yeah, so this is, I guess, like you kind of think of it like an NIS game, and in a way it is an NIS game, but in a way it's not an NIS game. It's sort of like ex-NIS because it's actually in Japan, developed by Gemdrops, produced by Broccoli, or I should say published by Broccoli, but the production of it, the producer is Shohei Nikawa, who was like the Disgaea guy who was ex-NIS. But in the West, NIS America picked it up. So it kind of, from our perspective, feels like an NIS game, even though it's sort of like technically not. But it's got, that, I don't know the artist's name, but it's got the Conception artist for like the
Yeah, I
Conception
think
games.
ReZero, yeah,
Or
but same
ReZero, yeah,
artist.
that artist.
Yeah.
You'll recognize the art if you watch anime, or if you'll recognize it. But it's I guess it's like, is it really an RPG? Maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. It's more like kind of like a adventure musical type game. With it's hard to describe the type of gameplay that it has, and I haven't played it myself, and I think I've said on a previous podcast, if you look at gameplay like trailers for this game, it almost feels chaotic, like what exactly is going on here.
So when I had a chance to get hands on with the Switch 2 version of Beyond the Horizon prior release, I also managed to play a little bit of this. I at the time didn't write up a preview on it because I wasn't sure if it was within our scope. But I can describe what the gameplay is. It is kind of like not so much a Dynasty Warriors game, but it's a similar style of you're defeating all these enemies, but it's a bit more low key. It's not like hordes upon hordes of enemies so much, but it's more almost like an RTS, but you're controlling the characters directly. And multiple stages will have this like kind of line where things like a conveyor sushi, like a sushi conveyor belt, where items will come down it, and sometimes those are just what's the best way to describe it? Sometimes it's just I don't know how to pronounce this. Superfluous? Yeah, superfluous. And sometimes, like in boss fights, you need to grab specific stuff from those conveyor belts in order to attack them properly. Like the boss I fought was like this giant robot, and you needed to grab these bombs in order to knock it down so that you could then attack its weak point. like you would throw the bombs at its legs during specific attacks, and it would let you actually attack it properly. And there's multiple objectives for these like missions. There's like a miniature world map that you just ride around on in your like tank thing, and it also acts as a hub to do like upgrades, and there's also little vignettes between you and characters. Like I think one that Hayes posted a photo of was there's a lot of different recipes you can unlock to give you buffs, and like whenever you find a new recipe and you like make it, you actually get a little vignette about the main character like trying it out and giving her thoughts on it. And I think the one takeaway I had when I played it was I wasn't sure. Well, this is technically an adaptation of a manga, and at the time
yeah,
when I
that's
was
right, I
talking
remember that.
with the NIS America folks, they said they weren't sure if they were going to find a way to bring the manga over, because I played like about an hour of this back then, and then they had like an untranslated copy of the manga there, and I read a bit of it, and it's like, oh, this is really abridged from the original source material. But yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to play it. I thought it was a good time, but as I said before the podcast, it was one of those situations where just because I enjoyed my time with it for an hour, I wasn't sure how the full runtime was going to hold up, if it was going to get stale, if they were going to have enough to add with these additional missions to kind of further expand the gameplay so it doesn't get stale. And I don't know, maybe I'll play it now since Hayes enjoyed the full game so much, because it seems neat. What I saw of the story was actually really, really cute, and also felt like it actually had something to say. And I'm glad he enjoyed it.
It's really cool that like it seems like it's shaped up to be really, very, very like interesting to like go through. Like I think I have to assume Hayes like probably didn't expect to like love it as much as he did by the end of this. So it's always cool to see like hey, you found something surprising, and there was always something gratifying about the like hey, there's something that I never would think like what it would end up like this, but hey, here we are. So that's really cool. Like I might like set aside some time to like play through this too. Now it wasn't on my radar, but due to Hayes' review, hey, I generally enjoy the same games that Hayes does. So, but yeah, so definitely give Hayes' review a Etrange Overlord up on the site. Very very cool review. This one was posted somewhat earlier today. A new interview that you conducted at GDC, James, with CyberConnect 2 Vice President Taichiro Miyazaki about Dot Hack Zero and generally like the legacy of Dot Hack from past to present at CyberConnect 2 as they link the past and the future together moving forward. So it was a fascinating interview. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so obviously there wasn't too much that they could talk about the project in specifics quite yet, but when I sat down for the interview, my whole goal was, can we at least get a little bit more of an idea of what their goals are, what they are trying to accomplish? And I tried to probe some questions I thought that made a lot of sense to ask. Like the one question I was really happy with was, what does portraying an MMO mean now versus when Dot Hack was new? And one thing I brought up is when Dot Hack came out, so like traditional social media basically did not exist. So your social media, if you were online, was forums or MMOs. And what does that mean when you're trying to? Because like Dot Hack itself, the series, isn't just about the MMO. It's about the social experience you share with people online and how it can feel as real as reality, or even more real in some cases. And how are you going to tackle that when when the internet is such a different place and the dynamics with MMOs is such a different beast nowadays? And yeah, that was definitely one of those things I asked. I also asked about some follow-up questions because we did get a little bit of a hint about what the story is going to focus on, and I had to kind of like pull on that thread a bit. That, of course, being we don't know yet exactly what they mean by this, but it seems like AI is going to be part of the game's story. So
Yeah, and to be clear, that's not to say like it'll have generative AI or anything. Like the original Dot Hack games, of course, like focused on AI in terms of artificial intelligence inside an MMO. So they it was very vaguely worded in their response, and we're kind of all hoping that they aren't using generative AI in the game. Not to say that nothing is confirmed, nothing is denied. It's way too early
yeah,
to like say anything like in terms
it's
of
like
that
I'm not
regard.
gonna.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done my due diligence if I didn't
right,
like ask that follow-up question.
exactly. Yeah. And I think both a fair question and a fair response, and hopefully you know I want them to be transparent. I don't want them to beat around the bush, and you know if it's in there, don't hide it from people.
Yeah,
The,
I think
the
it was
last
really funny, and I originally had like a sort of editor's note there when he said, "Oh, a lot of newer people that were fans of Dot Hack have joined CyberConnect 2, people in their 20s," and I almost put editor's note, probably 30s.
oh man,
I thought, no,
uh,
that would be too mean,
uh,
even if it was correct.
uh, don't remind me. But yeah, thank you for the interview. Like I said, we'll keep our eyes out on this, on any new updates that they have to share. It's still fairly early in development, but as we get closer and closer to whenever it is ready to manifest itself again, we'll be on hand. Adam, you put up a preview for Crimson Moon at your time at GDC. I believe this was was it a state of play? I know it was at an event where they
It was
announced
it was
it.
a PlayStation State of Play when it was announced. Yeah, so this is one of my GDC previews. I have more coming, but this was the first one I wrote up. And so Crimson Moon, if you watch the State of Play, it's the one that had like the heavy metal music. It kind of had like a reddish crimson art style. I compared it to like kind of being looking like kind of like Diablo-ish, with like armored angels and red demons. And so this game, like basically it was described as like a mission-based action RPG game with loot and um stamina-based action RPG mechanics and things like that. And so I didn't get a chance to go hands-on. It was more like a guided, like kind of they played it, kind of guiding the demo hands off. And basically, it seems like it's a type of game where I guess I'll start with this. I asked them like what sorts of games basically like inspired this game, and they basically weren't shy to say, all art is inspired. Like nothing comes out of nothing. Everything contributes to, the collective thought of art. And they're like, well, we've played Neo, we've played Dark Souls, we've played Darksiders, we've played Diablo, we've played all these games, and this is kind of what we've come up with. And also, we were also inspired by heavy metal music, and they emphasize this a lot. In fact, I've seen some other previews go up basically saying that this game is a metalhead's dream. You don't necessarily think of music as like being inspiration to a game, but this one
I
apparently
like it
so.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they're like heavy metal album art,
We literally have people of note coming out in a few weeks that is just
Yep.
that. So
or
Yep.
there's also like Brutal Legend if you want to go
Right.
back.
yeah.
Yeah, so it seemed to me I only got to see a very like a glimpse of it, like one mission basically. It kind of to me felt like a Neo type game. If I had to like say what it's most like, it's that, because it's sort of like you start in a hub area, you go to a mission, and you set like some modifiers. These seem to be a little bit like in progress, but like in terms of difficulty, in terms of loot, and probably some other modifiers in terms of the mission, I'm assuming the harder it is, the better reward you can get out of it. And then you do like a level, like a isolated level. You go through it. It's an action RPG, heavy attack, light attack. There's a couple different like character classes you can pick as. The ones that they had in the demo were Sunder and Aegis, which is like kind of range attack, physical attack. And they use the physical attack class. I asked them, are these like kind of like classes? And they hesitated to call it a class, but they said that's probably the most easiest word to wrap your head around what we envision here. So there's like multiple different like play styles that kind of fit into, the outline of a class. And you go through the level. It's a bit faster paced than most like Souls like games. It's a little bit more actiony. although it shares, similar mechanics, of course, throughout. The person I talked to emphasized that it isn't like open zone. While there is some room for exploration, like rooms off the path and whatnot, he basically said like this is a designed level. Go through the level, you fight a boss at the end. The boss I fought was like an undead cardinal, kind of like jumping around zombie thing. I guess all the enemies in this game are like the undead that you're fighting. You beat the boss, you get like a reward in terms of like loot and drops and currency, and then it brings you back to like your hub area. Now, I actually was talking to them about the game, and they described it as a mission roguelike. And I've actually seen some confusion about this online even before my demo. Like, wait, is this a roguelike or is it just mission based? Because that's not quite the same thing. They're similar in that you're doing like runs. Like in a mission based game, you might do a mission multiple times to like get loot or whatever, but that's not a roguelike, even though it's like run based. And I actually even asked them like outright, like if I called this an action RPG roguelike, is that not a misnomer? And they said it is not a misnomer. But they were kind of vague about it in terms of how the roguelike progression plays a role in terms of like, are there boons that you get in a mission that are only for the mission, or are there other things that are reset? I'm not sure. So that part I think is still a little bit up in the air. Like how much of a roguelike is it? If you go to the original announcement, they don't really call it that. So that was a bit surprising to me that they described it as that. So that's a little confusing. But otherwise, I think the art style looks pretty great. It's definitely got that sort of like red and gold palette, which, it's going for a certain style. One thing that's maybe a little bit corny, like I said, they were talking a bunch about like the heavy metal music. He was like, pay attention to the music during this boss fight and listen to how metal it is. And he was like, while they were doing the boss, he's just like, when that metal kicks in, it just fuels me. Like he was really into it. Like definitely a metalhead. So if you're this sounds like a Mikhail game, perhaps.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so I guess this game is coming out this year. It was shown at a PlayStation State of Play, but it was PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Obviously, I just got to see the one level, and I didn't get to see how progression works and the rogue-like elements or whatnot. But yeah, something to keep an eye on. I thought it looked pretty far along. There are some demos I saw that were definitely like very early, like demo like builds, but this one, yeah, I can definitely believe that it's coming out this year. But yeah, just something to keep an eye on. I thought it was kind of an interesting little meeting I had with the developers, and this is one of those things I talked about last week. That these are the sorts of meetings. This is a relatively small team of developers. I guess Probably Monsters is maybe a few hundred people, but Probably Monsters is the developer. But like meeting these people who are like very, very enthusiastic and passionate about their games, like in a hotel room, getting to demo it and seeing kind of that mix of like enthusiasm and nerves as they're showing off their game to people like me, like those sorts of meetings are cool, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 10,000%. Those are my favorite types of meetings.
Mm-hmm. Like this wasn't, like we've been to SGF and whatnot where you get like big companies and like, long-term producers, kind of, it almost feels like this is maybe a bit cynical, but like kind of going through the motions, like, yep, this is a formal meeting. Here are the rules. Here's what we're going to do. But this is just kind of like, hey, this is our game and we really want to show it to you.
James, again, you went to Capcom some time ago to check out Pragmata, and it's coming out in less than a month. I don't know if you wanted to add on anything because you released a new preview, and I know the public demo came out and they bumped up the release date. Did you want to mention what you saw? Was there anything new? Anything to
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I played like 2.5 hours, and it was like a full segment of the game, like from beginning to end, like entering into an area, exploring it, fighting the boss, seeing all the story stuff, and also interacting with like the hub stuff. Like, yeah, if there was any question, this is, I would say, close enough that, well, obviously we're already covering it, but it does, close enough to an RPG that's within our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Because the way it works is that you get all this currency and level, sometimes these like capstone like upgrade materials, and then you can upgrade your guns to improve their attributes and their damage, and there's like damage numbers. You can also improve your armor to increase your health and defense. There's other abilities. There's like a really neat mod system where you can upgrade the number of mods that you can have equipped, and they give you these modifiers to you. And like for like at their most basic, it's like if you're firing from farther away, you're going to deal more damage, or if you're firing closer away, you're dealing more damage. Those are 2 different mods you can get. There's also a bunch of other ones that are like way more esoteric. And the one thing that I was slightly worried about was I was worried that there wasn't going to be enough of a twist to the hacking minigame that would get stale by the end of the game. Thankfully, I'm not worried about that anymore because they introduced this thing called like well, I don't know the exact term, but it's basically like a firewall where the bots will put up these red barriers on them, and those red barriers are showcased in the hacking, blocking off parts of the grid so you can't go through them. So you have to actually shoot those red barriers to bring them down so you can properly hack to open up their weak points to do major damage. So stronger bots are going to have that, especially like bosses. And there's like whole mechanics of, okay, you need to be able to, like for some bosses, you need to be able to aim and reach for those red firewall panels so you can actually hack to deal the more damage. And there's a whole gameplay loop in and of itself of how do I reach them while dodging their attacks, especially that big boss that they showcased in one of those most recent trailers in that like New York inspired area. That's like a fantastic boss fight. I already thought that the one boss fight in the demo was pretty good. Obviously a very early boss. This one looks neat. And yeah, there's a decent amount of platforming. I'm loving the differences, and like there's like this one bot that you can find that's that runs away from you, so you have to chase it, and while also trying to hack it when you get close. And it has like a very special hacking grid that is like you can only follow this one maze to the end in order to hack it, and then you get a bunch of the currency. Really cool stuff. Game looks great. It's a Capcom game, so I'm not keeping my hopes too high for the story.
Yeah.
that might be a bit derogatory, but you understand what I mean.
I know. But
Shinji-kun is the only person at Capcom I trust to write a good story. I'm sorry.
It is looking promising though. Brand new IP, I always cherish and welcome bigger developers and publishers taking on risks on something completely new instead of a sequel or follow up of something familiar. So I hope this shakes out well. I really want to play it for myself too. That's been looking great. Okay, so a few more weeks on that one. We're almost there. There's an interesting one, and Adam, you might be able to speak to this. We got a few guides up for Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection, and this was done with the help of a freelancer named Ryan Woodrow.
Yeah, this is actually one of those things that Alex put together in the middle of GDC. So, it was the time. I mean, obviously that's when the game was releasing, but we needed. So let me step back a bit. So we do some guides here on Archetype. We don't tend to go too overboard on guides, although I do some walkthroughs. But a couple of tips and search pages and things like that really do benefit just literally our site's bottom lines in terms of clicks and ad revenue, and it allows us to do the things that are perhaps more fun in terms of this podcast or our reviews or everything else that we do. But for a game like this, which is kind of right in our wheelhouse, and we just needed some help writing some basic tips and help pages for it, we got a freelancer, kind of Alex, almost kind of tossed him in kind of pretty quickly, just hey, we need some help. And I don't know where he if he knew Ryan beforehand or not, but yeah, we got some help to do some guide work for it. But he's done it mostly himself, so I haven't been able to collaborate or coordinate with him much. But let us know if there's any issues with those, I guess.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Ryan.
I helped Alex put them together on the site.
Okay.
Same. Yeah, actually on Tuesday it was hey, got a job for you. Just make sure these are 2 of these are ready to go. I was yeah, that's fine. It was just a pain. It was a pain in the ass getting the images off of Google Drive.
Yeah,
But,
I know that. Yeah, like I learned how to do that now for this.
Wait,
yeah,
wait. Why is it a
on
pain to
Google
get?
Docs, on Google
Google
Docs.
Docs. Got it. I thought you said Google
Okay,
Drive. I'm like, wait.
I did. No. If it's an image that's embedded on a Google Docs, for whatever fucking reason, Google doesn't just let you right click to download them to your desktop
Yeah.
directly. You have to save them to your Keep, and then you can do that. And it's like, why? What is your fucking problem?
Yeah.
So did you like manually did all those pictures? There's a lot of pictures.
Yes.
Oh god.
Oh, well, thank you for everyone involved in making it happen. I did not know this was an ordeal, but thank you for your sacrifice.
Yep.
And then rounding it all off, I released an interview with the Paranormasight series director and producer, Paranormasight series director Takanari Ishiyama and Paranormasight series producer Kazuma Oshu about the new entry of the Paranormasight series, The Mermaid's Curse, which I released a review several weeks ago, and got to talk to them about generally like the creation process of this new entry and the challenges they faced after the like coming off after the Seven Mysteries of Honjo. And I think like the one big thing that they revealed, and I'm glad that I was able to share that with the Paranormal Site community, was hey, they're actually considering releasing the English version of that Paranormal Site File 25 manga, like a sequel manga to the Seven Mysteries of Honjo. Because up until this point, it's only been released in Japan, and it's kind of a bummer because that's actually when you first see Cersei interact with Mio in that manga, and we learn a lot about Cersei and the Mermaid's Curse. So hopefully feedback both from our community and other communities across the internet. Hopefully the Square Enix and Ishiyama-san and Oshu-san take notice of like the explosive feedback that we've been getting, and everyone else on the internet has been reacting to this news, and motivating them and Square Enix to localizing that manga. We got to talk about like the challenges of, since now the Paranormal Site is a series technically. The decision to go with a brand new all new cast instead of like relying on like the older characters from the first game, and the process they went through because they considered this being a more traditional follow-up with returning characters, and the reason of why they decided to expand that to all new characters. So and the thematic elements of what makes a paranormal site game a paranormal site. So a lot of great insight from that. We got some food recommendations as well when they did some location on-site location researching and taking screenshots for the backgrounds for this game. They got to go to the Iseshima region and Toba City. Of course, they went to the Kamishima as well, which is the island that was the model for Kamishima in The Mermaid's Curse. So if you're interested in all things paranormal site, it was a pretty substantial interview, and I hope to continue to do more as as they release more of these. Hopefully, they release more of these games, and I hopefully get more opportunities to kind of pick their brains about the series as we move forward. So it was
I haven't
awesome.
finished reading it because it has spoilers in the end. Obviously,
Yeah.
I haven't finished the game, but I think it's like a perfect bookend because you did the actual review and you got to do the interview after the game's launch. So, like, that's the perfect way to cap this off until hopefully maybe when the manga, if it gets localized or whatever, you can review that. I don't know if we do book reviews or whatever, but
That'd be
that would be
interesting
like
if
a
we
nice,
could. Yeah.
We have done at least one book review. It was a Dragon Age book from Natalie.
And I've reviewed plenty of visual novels, so I feel
Yeah.
like it
Mhm.
can make an argument.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting, yeah, if they do release it in English and we get a chance to review it. That'd be an interesting challenge that I would welcome. I'd love to do that if I was given the opportunity.
Look, I was actually playing it yesterday, and
Uh-huh.
my friend's stream, we were just dubbing over the voices.
That's funny.
I bought this game as a gift to Brian, but I never played it myself until yesterday. Actually,
Who do you like so far?
well, I'm still pretty early. I just got the first guy killed. Obviously, he killed me the first time, but I just it's like
It happens very, very, very early on, so don't. It's not a spoiler.
So that's kind of like we're pretty early at, but I was like
Yeah.
I played 2 hours in, so that was
Nice.
yesterday, and we're just dubbing it over for shits and giggles.
That's
But
funny.
we actually got invested near the first death, I guess.
Is it the first or second game you guys are playing?
The first game, because
Okay.
like I said, I only I bought the first game to Brian as a birthday gift, but I didn't actually play it for myself until yesterday.
Uh,
Too much time,
yeah.
too little time, too much things to do.
A lot of interesting news stories this week. We're gonna start off with the biggest news story. That of course I'm hosting this week, so it seems like a big coincidence and fate that this happened. But Idea Factory and Compile Heart finally announced a new numbered entry into the Neptunia series, the first one in 11 years. The last one was Mega Dimension Neptunia V2 on PS4. They announced Choushinjikuu Game Neptune Unlimited, which is rough localization of it is Hyper Neo Space Time Neptunia Unlimited. And it's coming to Nintendo Switch 1, 2, PlayStation 4, and 5 on August 27 in Japan. It's it's an interesting one because the premise of it is they basically replaced most of the main characters. Like in the Neptunia series, the four main characters are anime girl personifications of existing consoles, and well, most of them, because Neptune herself, the main protagonist, is a personification of what if Sega continued to release game consoles after the Dreamcast. So that's what she represents. Then you had Noir, which is PlayStation, Blanc, which was Nintendo, and Vert, which was Microsoft with Xbox. So everyone except Neptune is no longer the ruler of their nation, and the nation are like the three big console manufacturers, with Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. So Neptune herself is still this leader of Plan Neptune, which is once again, what if Sega continued to be a console manufacturer? And they were replaced by new characters, Rouge, CL, and the last one for Microsoft is Anna and Lot, which are it's funny because since this is meant to reflect the modern game industry now, Anna and Lot are the personification of Xbox Series X and S. That's why there's two representatives
Okay.
now for Microsoft. But the previous ones, Noir, Blanc, and Vert, are still in the game in some way, shape, or form. But we don't know why, what they're up to. They were shown off in new outfits, and that's it. The game footage itself, it seems to be like open zone, open field. Though I'm not necessarily sure if it's open world exploration where you can transform into your CPU goddess form at any time to go fly around them freely. The combat is all real-time action now, and that I think that's a first for the mainline numbered series. I know some of the spin-offs had real-time action gameplay, but it seems like this new entry has it's also it's almost Tales in a sense, where you have this battle arena, but all your actions are done on the fly, not through menus. In that regard. What else? The nations like Last Station, Leonbox, and Lowy, those have stayed the same except Lowy. Lowy is no longer Lowy. It's called Sweenia now because we're not on the Wii anymore. We're on the Switch, so it's been renamed to reflect that. Um, and trying to think what else is that's significant.
This isn't a game thing, but it
Yeah.
feels kind of old fashioned. Like now that Falcom, those announcements are more or less global. I know there's some confusion. Like, for example, Kyoto Xanadu, who the heck is publishing it? But like, Idea Factory almost feels old-fashioned, where like we get the Japanese announcement and it's like, all right, now we have to wait for the English announcement, and like, when is it coming out? Because right now we haven't heard anything. It feels kind of like a blast from the past. Like, oh yeah, this is how it used to be for everything.
Yeah. And Idea Factory Compiler are the like kind of just part of that remaining old crowd of like still traditional. Still their structure is how things are done.
They've had a few small like global releases. I think like there was that like
Yeah.
Returnal like
Right.
game and a couple others, and some of them are like pretty quick turnarounds. They still do the thing, like there's actually been a couple of games this year like actually releasing right around now, like Calamity Angels and Ariana and the Elder Codex. Like, these are very niche games, but they like have like the console release and then like the PC release like a month later. So they're shortening both the localization time as well as the PC port time. But for now, for this new Neptunia game, we don't have a PC port and we don't have an English localization at all. We have to wait. Feels old fashioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like at this point where it's like 1 or 2 months later for PC, I feel like they should just do them together, because you're just spreading out your marketing. Anyway, it's hard to get coverage for a lot of these games. Like whenever I post, most of the time I think I'm the one who does news for these things, and whenever I post that, I just check to see if anyone else is covering it, and there's like almost nothing about these games. So I feel like maybe their logic is that they get more articles because they have like more releases or whatever, but I feel like having them together would make it more likely for people to just cover it or pay attention, because the staggered stuff doesn't really work, especially if it's like this close and if it's like this niche. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, before you join the site, like Adam and I are well acquainted with the Compile Heart Idea Factory marketing scheme, where they like you said, they stagger these out and in hopes that like they get multiple times, sometimes even in a month, but at least one news post a month saying, "Oh, we've announced that it's coming to this console," and then like 2 weeks later, "Oh, it's coming to this console," and then 2 weeks later, "It's coming within this time frame." 1.5 weeks later, this is actually the exact release date. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
That's just I don't
Like, it's like a drip feed.
yeah. Yeah. So they definitely, I don't know, they need some. I feel like they kind of need to do some restructuring around that area. I feel like it's just outdated and an outdated way to do things. Kind of no one in the West really cares to do that anymore. So I don't know. I mean, they're still very much a different era.
And this is really neither here nor there, but even Etrange Overlord, I think, was a global release. Like, they made that happen. So
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So yeah, Idea Factory is definitely kind of they're behind the ball here, I guess, or that's not the right analogy, but
Yeah.
they're slow.
But either way, hey, if nothing else, I'm for better or for worse, I am sort of interested because it's a new numbered entry, and I'm not going to tell you that like these games are amazing, but there is some witty writing in the numbered entries.
Where were you when Mega Dimension came out? Here, but a long time ago.
Oh my god, I don't know, man. What is?
When did that come out? Like 2015? Yeah.
Zach was still. I think Zach was still writing for.
Yeah,
us
Zach is the one who
that time,
reviewed
right?
it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like more than 10 years ago since the last one. So
I don't know. I don't know if I was on the site by then. Like,
yeah,
I don't think so.
Mega Dimension.
Maybe just a little before. Yeah.
Or yeah, it's gotten a couple ports since then, but the original release date
2015.
Yeah, 2015. I have written down the Japanese release April 2015. The English release 2016 for PS4.
Oh, so this was after Omega Quintet.
Oh yeah. I remember Omega Quintet being the very first JRPG on PS4. Or I don't know if it actually was, but like everyone's favorite game.
Mm-hmm.
I
bright future. But yeah, man, I'm not thinking of like really really early JRPGs that like for PS3 for example like Cross Edge, Time and Eternity. Fuck.
Yeah, I was about to say Time and Eternity. It's like, who did anyone review that for RPG Cycle?
Yes,
You
and
did,
that was a Zach review, and Zach was pretty lenient in his reviews.
My God, that game has been blasted as like one of the worst games ever made. And, wow.
He gave Omega Quintet a 7. So that's just as good as Dragon Quest VII Reimagined.
Actually, true. That's how it works.
That's how scores work.
Yep.
Tower
But
Bomb
yeah,
is as good as Time and Eternity.
for better or for worse, I will play this new Neptunia game. I feel like that's something I have to do.
Look, my Grand Blue crew, there's one guy who was
Mhm.
so hyped when he heard that Neptunia news. He posted the entire timeline, and it's like, we finally got mainline game. It's like, I think we found a new Neptunian expert. Maybe I should talk to him.
Well, it felt like for the longest time after Mega Dimension, they were just doing a bunch of Neptunia spin-offs, for years and years.
Ports.
But even that kind of slowed down. Yeah, I guess more ports more recently, as long as they don't get canceled on Switch or whatever. But yeah, like even then, there hasn't been like a spin-off recently either. There was the racing one.
The motorcycle one of the
No,
goos.
I take
there
that
was
back. There's still been some spin-offs. There were a lot earlier on, but there's still been a
Yeah, the Vita
trickle of
had
them.
like they had like
yeah,
this.
that's cool.
They had like an action RPG. They had a tactical RPG or whatever.
Remember
Vita
they had
like a ton of that
the
shit.
Valkyrie Profile one by that Canadian studio that was
Oh,
not
man,
good.
Super Neptunia RPG. I think that was it, right? I just
I'm
remember it
free.
running like dog
I
shit on
reviewed
Switch.
that.
That's
Yeah,
all
I
I
reviewed
remember.
James and I actually talked to that one of the leaders of that studio for the Lost Helden at GDC. That's a whole different topic. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope he's doing all right considering geopolitical events.
Yeah,
Man.
he's in Dubai, so pretty close to Iran.
Man, fuck. Moving on, yeah. So we still don't have an official Western announcement yet for that new Neptunia game. So stay tuned. Probably coming fairly soon. The actual maybe biggest news story, at least at our site's view this week. Mikhail, you wrote up on this. Final Fantasy IX animated series officially in development at EuroVisual, and it's titled Black Mage's Legacy. So it's officializing the previous reports about this Final Fantasy IX animated series that's been in production, and it is not adapting the events of Final Fantasy IX. It's like a sequel to it, based on like VV's like aftermath after the game's events, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, so this is something which Alex found, and he also like contributed to the news story because there's more context over there which I didn't have. So, but yeah, this is, and they actually edited this after we published it, because after we published it, it got posted quite a few places like Reddit, Wario64 and all, and then they edited it a few hours later. I believe that's when I checked it, where it said instead of in production at EuroVisual, it became in development. And I saw some people wondering why did you update the story, but like in anime, those are like very different stages. It's not the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
like how some people assume a game in development and production, most people just use those interchangeably. But in anime, production comes a lot later. So,
Right.
but at least now it's official. Like it's not. It's like not just based on like a leak in some magazine or like rumors and stuff like that. This is actually official that it is happening. And the only thing which they didn't put up on the website is uh, when it was revealed that it was under Eurovisual, like last year when I wrote about it, it was targeting 2028 at that time. That isn't
Animation
mentioned
takes a
here
while.
because I don't think they've mentioned. Yeah, that they haven't mentioned any year over here. So obviously I didn't mention that, but I did link to the previous thing. So hopefully it does come out. And as usual, whenever you post anything about Final Fantasy 9, like 99% of the quotes and replies are, "Oh, is the remake finally happening? They have to be doing it." So yeah, I don't know what to say to that, but yeah, at least the anime is happening.
As far as the terminology goes, I assume it's something goes along. Like you start with like a planning phase, and then a development phase, and then a production phase. So like I would assume development is like pre-production.
Yeah, that's my read on it, but I think Josh might know better because I'm not so like I watch like one anime series a year, so I don't like really have that much background on it.
But the fact that but I saw people mentioning like, oh, it doesn't say in production anymore; it says in development. That makes me think like, oh, it's not as far along. Like it's not quite in production yet. It's in development.
Yeah, it's like that's generally like it's like even each studio has like different like labels on like what timeline they're on, like in terms of like the phase that they're on. But like in general, yeah, like the development is very much like, hey, we're still nailing down like even like character designs, like settings, and still very like they are in the process of like even like constructing like bigger scoped ideas, and production. It still takes, well, like I said, a really long time. Is like slowly
It's the
putting
actual
those
animation,
concepts onto, like, and as you know, the easiest way to make people understand about these timelines is like go look at the Spider-Man animated films.
Oh yeah.
Those take a really long time. The K-pop Demon Hunter sequel, that's gonna take a really long time to come out. So this is a very complicated process, and this is like not even like getting into the potential contractual hurdles that they have in Square Enix in regard of using the Final Fantasy IX IP, and what sorts of roadblocks that they could face in that regard.
Yeah, I assume pretty much any creative decision they make in this show has to get approval.
Yeah, yep, 10,000,000%. So, but if it comes out, I'll definitely watch it. I'll probably replay FF9 first before it comes out.
Hopefully, it'll time with that remake, which has had several very obvious moments where they had intended for it to happen. It's
Mhm.
yeah.
I do think it's a little bit fascinating that like I'm very interested to see like how this comes together in terms of like the intended audience, because like Mikhail put up a social media post from Alex, our boss, on this, like, hey, this is not for the FF9 veterans. This is for this is a kid show. This is for like almost like think of it like as a cartoon almost. There's not to be some sort of like irreverent and like kneeling down towards like the FF9 legacy. This is like kind of portrayed as like a brand new world for newcomers.
Also, it's also French animation, not so it might not be the exact like anime style that people might
Right.
imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fascinating.
Mhm.
Another interesting news story here. This was happened earlier on in the week, but out of nowhere, Type Moon put up a post on their site talking about the production status of the Fate Extra record, the remake for Fate Extra. The last time we got a look in on it was like in sometime like in 2025, like July 2025. And it was shown that like, hey, it's being published by Bandai Namco, and they released a new trailer for it, and it's still being developed by Type Moon Studio BB. So this new announcement is like, hey, we're delaying the release of Fate Extra Record indefinitely, and Bandai Namco is no longer the publisher. And everyone's like, oh, huh?
This is
So,
really, really odd, because I remembered hearing like last year that the project was supposedly basically done and was supposed to come out last year. So something happened, and I don't fucking know what.
yeah, it's also like you don't really get these announcements of like a publisher just like very publicly backing out too.
There was also some like reading between the lines. Does this mean like Bandai Namco? This is simplifying it a bit, but did Bandai Namco drop Type Moon, or did Type Moon decide, nah, we don't need you, or maybe a little bit of both? I've seen some people speculate like maybe Type Moon and Aniplex and whoever else they work with for Fate stuff, maybe they just wanted to publish it on their own without Bandai Namco, or maybe Bandai Namco decided this isn't worth it. We don't really know. We can speculate, but yeah, in any case, that
Yeah,
partnership is over.
yeah. We know it's been going through. I don't know if it's trouble development. It's very much going through a development hell phase of its own. And also like they were started like when it was first revealed last year that Bandai Namco was involved in publishing it. They even started taking pre-orders of like this game that hasn't really manifested yet, but like here are the goods. You can secure a pre-order for like these goods. I remember they had that. I guess I'll call it infamous new art from Vada Arco with Nero and a few of the other female leads in Fate Extra, but most prominent in that artwork was Nero's feet, are just randomly like attached onto it too, like front and center, and it's like a bizarre piece, and it's like this is their apology for that. But now that was like a pre-order goodie that people can like buy like you know a collectible for it. But that's no longer available because obviously they canceled all pre-orders following this announcement. So I don't know. I don't know. That's very weird and awkward. So we'll see um, what they have to say next whenever this project surfaces again. I don't know when. Who knows?
This might not be too significant, but it's worth mentioning. Like when they delayed it last year, they gave a targeted window. Like it's no longer coming out in
Spring,
2025.
yeah.
It's coming out in spring 2026. But this
Yeah.
time, they're like, there is no targeted window. It's just indefinite. So just at some point, we don't know when.
This also happened with the Dynasty Warriors 3 remake. What's happening? Why are the things that I'm excited about just vanishing into the shadow realm? But yeah. Let's see. Next up, this is very recent news. Apparently, there's a Minecraft event happening this weekend. As of the time of this recording, it's happening. But they announced Minecraft Dungeons 2 for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, Switch 1, and PC, and it'll launch sometime this year. And that's pretty much all the news stuff for it. As far as I know, they have an announcement trailer.
Yeah, I didn't play the original, so I'm not very familiar with it. I know obviously Minecraft's super popular, and this is some event, that it was announced at. So I assume further details will come with like press release on Monday. Is my assumption.
Yeah. I played a bit of Minecraft Dungeons. This was like around the time I had finished Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. I feel like it was around that time because when I played this, it felt like the most dumbed down version of Diablo 3, which people already told me was like a dumbed down version of Diablo 2. So I just like, no one was there to play it with online. So I just like, I remember downloading it on Game Pass, trying it a bit, was like, nope, I'm done with it. And then I bought the Ultimate Edition, which had like a lot of the DLC. And then they pulled, like something like Josh and I bring this up quite often, that you should wait for a game, like when you get it later it'll be patched and fixed up. They did the opposite with Minecraft Dungeons, where like that was supposed to be the end of it, but they patched in like microtransactions or something like that, and I just got so
Okay.
pissed off I just sold it. Like one of the
Ah,
few Switch games I actually sold. So like I don't know what to think about this one yet. Like I just saw the trailer and platforms are announced, and like it's on everything as usual. But yeah, I am hoping that they don't like pull in the like in-game currency nonsense again, which is like added later on or whatever. Like
that
that
sucks.
kind of
Yeah, I
left a
didn't know
bad
about that.
taste in my
Yeah.
mouth. Yeah, they did that with like I think they were doing that with a few of the games at that time, because one of the Forza Horizon games also later on added like an in-game Forza currency thing which you could use to buy cars, which wasn't there before. So like I'm just like, I'm gonna wait and see on this one before like investing time into it. That's where I'm at. But yeah, like Adam said, we're gonna have to wait for like a press release or whatever to actually show what's gonna be different over here, because it makes sense doing a new one. I assume the old one did well because they had the Minecraft Dungeons, and what was the other spin-off which I feel like it didn't hit as hard because I didn't see
Story
that
mode.
many people talk. Uh, what was it?
Minecraft story mode.
No, not that. That is completely dead. What is the other? They had another
Minecraft
spin-off like which,
Legends.
that's the one. What happened to that? I feel like I just
Oh,
it just yeah,
I
like
don't
that's the
know.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Minecraft Legends was the one which I never ended up playing much. So I don't know what happened to that. But yeah, like Dungeons, it makes sense doing a new one, but it's a wait and see with me.
And I know you have to go in a bit, Mikhail, so I'll bump up this next one for you. You want to talk a bit about how do you pronounce it? Meregnon, Heart of Ice, sliding through
Yeah,
the
yeah.
snow, single featuring Nobuo Uematsu. So kind of tee us up on
So
what this is.
yeah, yeah.
Your
So
thoughts?
just some backstory on it. Alex wrote a news story like back in 2024 that Uematsu was gonna have a concert performance like with an orchestra, but this was notable not because it's just going to be like him conducting or him performing music from games where he's worked on, but this was going to have new music which was specifically composed for this performance and not anything else. So
Oh,
it was going
interesting.
to be new music from Uematsu-san debuting at an orchestra performance, which was going to have like part one featuring arrangements from like Fantasian and Lost Odyssey, and part two was going to be like the story driven new music performance thing. So this happened in like 2024, I believe. Then they had like one or two more performances based on what I was looking at. But then Uematsu posted on Twitter like a few days ago, which just said that something is happening based, like he was teasing something for March 20th featuring the London Symphony Orchestra, and it had like a clip of a recording. And usually what these teasers lead to an album or a single or a video release, but there was a the link is formatted in a specific way, which is how people use to distribute music online. Like these are like lnk.to links. These are usually when it's like a catch-all link which links to different services for streaming or downloading. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, the album or a single is coming out. So, and new music from Uematsu is like a huge deal for like any RPG fan. And it ended up being that. So like after the tease, when it turned midnight on March 20th, the first single from this album release, it came out, and it is like actually the first like new music from Uematsu since Fantasian. So it's like, and it's pretty fantastic, like London Symphony Orchestra performance. So that was basically the notable thing. There's no album release date yet, but it's probably coming soon because you don't do a single unless your album is coming out in a few months at most. So yeah, if you
Okay.
like Uematsu's music, this is like it's a fantastic composition. So you should listen to it. It's streaming
Okay.
on everything. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. Nice. Thank you for the update on that. And before we let you go as well, did you want to talk about the System Shock remake patch 2.1?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So
so
as you said, like this brings performance improvements and feature parity to all platforms.
So, a little bit of backstory on this. I interviewed the System Shock remake development team before it came out, and at that time they were talking about, like, it's a very long interview. They were talking about how they like aimed for performance targets and stuff on Switch. But what happened when the game launched, it was in a really rough state because the day one patch was delayed, and then Nintendo certification is notoriously long with patches. So it just launched in a really bad state. Like I ended up doing the review a month later after it had gotten two patches, and it still was not great. But what had happened at this point is the game had, like, if you've been there from the start, it released on PC, it got controller support a while later. Then it came to consoles like PS4 and Xbox One. Then it got like a PS5 and Xbox Series version. Then it came to Switch and Switch 2 together in December 2025. But they kind of had the Square Enix problem where the newer versions had more fixes and more features than the older versions. And they weren't able to give a timeline on when everything would get patched. So you had people who bought the game at full price who essentially had like bugged versions or like missing features compared to people who potentially paid less on other platforms. And they finally managed sorting all the timelines because the update which came out this week, patch 2.1, brought parity to everything. So you have like gyro controls on PlayStation, which is supposed to be added. I haven't updated yet there, but that's supposed to be their mouse controls fixed. They have like explosive like buttons to use explosives which have been fixed, and the main thing they promised is significant performance improvements on Switch 2. I haven't compared with my like review screenshots and review stuff. I just downloaded it to check, but I can confirm it's still not locked 60 fps, which is kind of unfortunate. But I haven't like done more than a few minutes of testing, but I am very happy that the features are now added everywhere because like there were a lot of UI issues with controllers on console. So like now everything is supposed to be fixed. Gyro support on PC natively instead of having to force it via Steam input. And yeah, like it's I'll probably like play it next month, because like April doesn't seem to have a lot of stuff which I'm going to be playing, so I might replay it and see what they've actually done with this update. So if you own it, like download it. And yeah, there is one last thing I want to bring up, not related to this update, but this is like a bizarre thing with Nintendo's cross-gen updates and cross-gen releases. They have this thing where if a game releases on Switch 1 and Switch 2, and it's not a Switch 2 edition, which is their official cross-gen thing, some developers are like, they have it set up in a way where your free upgrade happens a week after launch, which is a little weird, because this happened with the Tomb Raider 1, 2, 3 remaster, where the Switch 2 version launched on the 11th of March alongside the mobile version. But people who had the Switch 1 version digitally weren't able to get the free upgrade until March 18th. So if you go on the eShop, it would ask you to buy it, but if you waited till March 18th, it became 100% free. I've had this happen with 4 other games in the last few months. So I feel like this is a kind of like, it's a weird anti-consumer and just weird, like not informing consumers enough, because you'd end up essentially just buying the thing. Like when I had System Shock review code, it was just one platform, like a US code for the Switch 2 version and a Europe code for the Switch 1 version, because I needed access to both versions. But a few weeks after launch, the other version became free, but nowhere was this indicated on the eShop. It was just, I happened to check to see a discount and it showed up as 100%. So if you own games which got Switch 2 separate releases, you should like add them to your wish list and check after a few weeks in case they're free. So that's just
Oh,
like not related to this
good
patch,
tip.
but it's just a bizarre implementation of
Yeah.
cross-gen stuff, because I think Nintendo's like not handling that well enough. Like both other platforms handle it a lot better. Console platforms, I should be specific.
Nice.
So yeah.
Thank you for the tip. And I don't know if you wanted to stick around for this one or one, Mikhail, because I looked up this news story. The Shenmue III Enhanced got its first trailer, and
Yeah, I can.
I am freaking stunned that they released this trailer. Look, Yu Suzuki's going through it ever since the release of Shenmue 3, but this kind of one of the most bizarre trailers I've ever seen in terms of like how they use quotes from other outlets to prop up Shenmue 3, which is universally not well regarded, but they have to kind of spin it in a way to, obviously promote the game in a positive light. And then I was like, okay, that's really weird. And then I read
Just
the press
imagining
release.
a version of the trailer where it has Super Eye Patch Wolf, so quote, "I've wasted my life."
Oh man, that'd be insane. So yeah, they showed off, the first look of Shenmue 3 Enhanced, like finally with this pre-order trailer, and then the press release is even worded in a more bizarre way, because it leads off saying, following the initial seismic announcement in August 2025, the communication around Shenmue 3 Enhanced officially resumes today. And then somewhere in that
Yeah,
opening paragraph is like, "There's the real McCoy, no imitation." I'm like, what are we doing?
I, I'm a bit confused about the release in general, because like one, like I'm happy it's there, because like Shenmue 3 ran pretty bad on PS4. That wasn't even close to its like biggest issue like with the game. That's a separate topic, but they are giving a discount to PS4 and PC owners. I feel like the big news over here would have been that they confirmed the Switch 2 version, because like previously they just said coming on Nintendo brackets consoles or something vague, because they couldn't reveal. But the weird thing is, like, sure, Shenmue's debuting on a Nintendo platform and all, but you can't play Shenmue 1 and 2 there yet. Sega
Yeah,
never ported them. It was one of those bizarre things, like, they ported Bayonetta, obviously, because Bayonetta 2 was coming, but Vanquish never made it over. Because when they did the Bayonetta plus Vanquish double pack on PS4 and Xbox, it never got released on Switch, so Vanquish didn't happen. Like, Sega has a lot of random games which never got ported over, so I feel like this is gonna have even less of an impact, because what is the audience for people who played Shenmue 1 and 2 on other platforms who never played it on, like through the bazillion discounts it got on PC and PS4, but will now play it on Switch too? I guess the people who like buy physical games only because it's getting a full release on cartridge. And a friend of mine got really mad at this, and he's like, out of all the Switch 2 games which I want to buy, which I've like ended up getting digitally because I'm not buying keycards, this is the one which gets a physical release. Like, what the hell? So like, yeah, that's an interesting takeaway from it.
Yeah, so they also
Yeah, the
shut off the.
trailer.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
the trailer has this classic camera as like one of the big things
The
which they're
Shenmue
showing off
1
with the
camera.
yeah, and I'm like, again, like it's Shenmue 3 itself is a game which you really only play if you're super invested in 1 and 2, and if you were, you'd probably already played it and you backed it on Kickstarter. So who is left who hasn't played it? Like, I just don't know. I don't see any audience for this that's like, oh, I love Shenmue on Dreamcast and like the Xbox or whatever, and I have a Switch 2 only, or I have an Xbox only and no other platform. So I'm gonna buy this day one, and I'm gonna buy like this collector's, like 2 special editions they've announced. I don't know who this is for.
This release, I'd be like, "There's the last chance for the Shenmue series. If you don't get this, there won't be a Shenmue 4." That's how I
And
would have marketed this.
I saw like Alex was talking about this on the VGC podcast where they were discussing this, and it just reminded me that they haven't said anything about like changing or adding to the ending over here, and that was like one of the major issues people had with it. Like, it didn't move the story forward enough. So the fact that they are not even talking about that just tells me this is like a quote unquote enhanced port and bringing it to new platforms and doing a new physical release, nothing more. If it actually does have more story content, I feel like they're doing a disservice by not mentioning it, but I'm going to assume it's not there.
It's not there, but it's just like, hey, we need proof of life that there's still interest in the series. Series, okay.
But yeah, if they were
But
able
hey,
to
I
get
mean,
Shenmue 3, they should have like pushed, or they can still do it. Like, push Sega to do Shenmue 1 and 2 on Switch 1 or Switch 2 or whatever. Like, that's your only hope you have for getting people on Switch 2 to buy this, because like why else are they going to buy it?
maybe someone wants like the collector's edition with the stands up. What was the name? The name of the main character. He's all stands up in front of a wooden dummy. Rio, was
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
I haven't I forgot what the statue looks like, but I saw someone on Blue Sky say it looks like he's taking a dump. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
yeah, pretty
Okay.
much. He's
Okay.
like fully bending his knees wide, and then like with his fists and arms forward. So he looks like he is kind of taking a dump in front of a dummy,
Okay.
wooden dummy.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a forklift chain too with that collector's edition.
I love my
Everyone look.
keychains. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Shenmue 3 Enhanced. I don't think they announced a release date. No. Stay tuned, Shenmue believers. Next up, we got a gameplay first look video for the upcoming action adventure RPG Exodus by Archetype Entertainment. Adam, you put this up. They wanted to show off people like sort of their not Mass Effect, um, you know, up, gameplay. It's like when you look at the gameplay, it's like, yeah, you do look, it does look a bit like Mass Effect.
Yeah, I mean, so this game was announced a while ago. I want to say, actually, let me look this up real quick. Like 2020, I'm gonna guess 2023. It's been a few years. Am I underselling it? Yeah, it was announced in 2023. But then, like throughout all of 2024 and most of 2025, they basically just showed we kept getting like press releases for like lore and like concept art and things like that, which is fine. You got to start somewhere, but it was just kind of like 2 years of just like a new universe, like lore stuff. Like, trust us, bro, the game looks fine. Like, and I guess I wasn't the only one thinking this. People were like, show us gameplay, and they showed a little bit last year at the Game Awards. But this is basically like, okay, here is our quote gameplay first look. Here's what it looks like to actually play the game, and it's like a 2-minute trailer that's pure gameplay. Like, this is what the game actually looks like. So I appreciate them for finally showing that. And in the kind of the blog post that went with it, they basically said this game comes out next year, 2027, and this year, 2026, we're just going to keep showing you here's what the actual game looks like, which is like, what a novel concept. But they're showing combat. They want to show like some of the RPG stuff later. There's also going to be companions and romance, so they're going to show that later. Also, that's one of the things they highlighted. But yeah, it looks like, it definitely looks like a Mass Effect, and it's got Mass Effect DNA in it, which, Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect Andromeda even came out a long time ago. So, that's fine. BioWare's not doing it. Let someone else do something in that vein. I
It's
actually
kind of weird because I guess they do like these community like newsletters or updates and asking their community what they want to see. And it's like the signal came back clear. You wanted to see gameplay. It's like no shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
I don't remember the exact like premise of this game, to be honest. Space RPG. I know it has like some like time dilation. If you're a sci-fi person at all, like long distance travel, how that affects people's perception of time and how time passage and things like that is supposed to be a factor in this game. So that's one way in which it differs from Mass Effect when that's not really considered. I think it looks pretty solid. It does look like this. It is Mass Effect, and it's got Mass Effect DNA, so it's not just it looks like it. It has some of the people behind that series, like creatively. I know some people are really excited for this or are interested in it, and I'm glad they're finally showing more of it.
There's
Yeah.
a void in the market.
Yeah.
Someone has to step up. So yeah, we'll see how it shapes up if they make up that early 2027 release date.
hmm
We got another media kit for the Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. They show off the Age of Reconstruction, quests, and cat collecting.
Yeah, I knew when I saw this press release, like Age of Reconstruction, nah, who cares? Quest, nah, who cares? Cat collecting, gotta
There you
highlight that.
go.
So yeah, like the collectible in the game is you find cats and you can take them home and you can even like pet them and feed them and give them toys. I think it seems like a pretty involved system.
I like the screenshots with it. It just has like a big fat cat that's
Yeah,
showing off like the menu
yeah,
items
it's like a
behind.
cat themed menu.
I like it.
But yeah,
I love the menus in the demo. So like seeing more of that like diegetic menus at work is really nice.
Yeah.
Also, every time I see a screenshot and I see the live furry reaction in the bottom left corner, it's like, God damn.
Picture-in-picture stuff.
or I see people, maybe even on this podcast, people like almost like a VTuber kind of framing like in the corner there, like they just react to whatever Elliot is doing. But this is one of those things that maybe wasn't obvious from the announcement, but it was kind of revealed or maybe made more clear in the release date trailer, which was shown in the partner direct a month ago in February. This is like a time travel story. There's like 4 different ages that you go through. So they showed let me get this up here. So yeah, so they showed the first like standard time is Age of Safekeeping, which is like the normal timeline. And then there's the Age of Reconstruction, which is supposed to be like, the bad timeline, things are, more tribal or more run down or whatnot. That's what we're seeing here. And then there's 2 other ages. There's the Age of Magic, which I guess is supposed to be like more like utopia-ish, like, high society, futuristic maybe. And then it's called the Age of Budding, the birth of civilization. So more of like a Genesis type thing, I guess. So yeah, it's I'm guessing we're gonna get the updates on those other 2 ages before release this summer.
A lot of action RPGs with time travel plots these days. Really makes you think. Got another update for Demon Kill Demon Yomi 1984. Shows off the jobs and key characters. Did some translating over this upcoming sequel to Undernaut's Labyrinth of Yomi. I'm really here just for the character designs and the job class designs. Really, there's something really compelling about just the general art style of these games.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's been a while since I've played, not to say there haven't been any, but like a really thorough like dungeon RPG, like class-based dungeon crawler type game. So like now this is from experience. Experience games in the past have been localized by like Axis and a few others, but mostly Axis. At least they did Undernauts.
Do you remember the very brief time when they had a Western like branch?
Yes, which I think was
When
like
they
one
specifically
person.
did that, yeah, they did that because it's like, hey, Demon Gaze sold really well in the West. Maybe since we can have a Western branch for Stranger of Sword City Revisited. I don't know what to tell you. People that doing it for like a re-release of a game that already was even like niche compared to like dungeon like crawlers. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah. Like I remember they had like the Western like PR like Twitter account for Experienced West, and like for like Stranger Sword City Revisited, which is like a really niche game. Like it's a great game. I like it quite a lot. It's got issues, but I like it. Stranger Sword City is pretty good. But
Yeah.
like for like 3 straight years, maybe not even that. That's like they would just tweet about like Stranger of Sword City. I don't know, just like you're basing your whole Western branch on this one game felt very, I don't know, yeah, like I'm not sure what you were
Risky.
thinking.
Feels like it would have made more sense to base it off of like Undernauts, but that was like not even a thing at the time. So I mean,
Yeah, but it's been I never played Manu, but that also seemed a bit different than their normal dungeon RPG stuff. I know it is a dungeon RPG, but it's got like a different like score type structure to it. I never played it. Also, the art
it's
style's
like
not super
dungeon
appealing to
RPG
me.
speed running or
Yeah.
something. Like
It's also the art style is very not interesting, but it's been a while, so I'm interested in this. I'm not sure when to expect any English release on it.
so this is only on Switch 1 at the moment, right?
Probably.
I guess this is another candidate of a game I will be playing using handheld boost mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stay tuned until we eventually get an official English localization announcement. It has not yet been announced for that yet.
My bet would be Anime Expo.
Oh yeah, good point. Let's see some sales updates. I could have mentioned this earlier. Crimson Desert has sold through 2 million copies worldwide. There's an interesting news story when this first release and after the reviews came out. That like due to the maybe the lackluster reviews in their eyes, the stock for Pearl Abyss dropped quite a bit due to the initial response. That was
Yes.
bizarre.
It just kind of shows how fickle investors are.
Yeah.
Because everyone's trying to, just preempt, like, oh no, how is the market going to respond to these mixed reviews? And so, like, people sell and people freak out and the stock price lowers. And, like, wait, actually, it sold, 2 million and had pretty high, like, concurrence and whatnot. And yes, I know that's not the full picture, but, like, seems to be on a pretty good start. I don't know. Stock markets. They're all just speculative.
The Liza P franchise surpassed 4 million units sold globally, and it's kind of like a weird terminology. Call it a franchise.
I saw this headline. I actually didn't look into it, and too bad Mikhail had to jump out. When they say Liza P franchise has sold 2 million or 4 million, my thought is, are they like counting DLC sales individually? So like you buy the game, you buy the DLC, that counts as 2.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't
I
Capcom
guess
do the
that's
same
true.
thing with the Monster Hunter series now?
I think so. Yeah. I'm looking at Mikhail's news post, and he says, well, this release doesn't mention it. The previous release said that is the case, where they're counting the Overture DLC as its own thing. So that's why they call
That
it
makes
franchise.
sense. It was like a $40 DLC. It's pretty significant DLC expansion. So I mean,
but
fair
just kind of
enough.
keep that in mind when they're counting 4 million. It's if you bought the game and the DLC, that counts as 2.
I mean, if I was a company, I'd be honestly happier if the DLC sold like millions of copies, because that's like, oh, those are people that are dedicated enough to this game that they also bought the DLC.
Yeah, like years later or whatnot. It's a good DLC, and it's a good game.
Yep. I'm super excited for that follow-up because I already like the base game, and that DLC is the best Souls-like DLC I've played, I think.
We have a new release just around the corner. This next news story here, we have Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy is coming out on March 23rd for iOS and Android.
And it's got new characters or more characters.
Yep. There are several new characters announced. We have Onion Knight. We have Iroha for all the FF11 players. We have Riku. We have Clive, Balthier, and what was the last one? Forgot the last one. There was Balthier and
I actually missed
Firion.
Oh, Firion.
Yeah. So and
Did you guys see that really interesting like video where it's like a bunch of Square Enix folks are talking about how this game is apparently very important for them for like training up new talent, which is interesting.
I wish it was on another game, but I can see that. I I don't know if I'd use this game to do that, but hey, good luck. I don't know. I mean, it's always good, but I don't know about this game, man.
I don't have any interest in this game like directly as a game. Like I will not play this. It's almost even out of my mind. But I do, as like a longtime person who's played all the Final Fantasy games, it is kind of interesting to see like these kind of new interpretations of these characters. Like for example, like
Yeah,
Riku is
like the
Riku is not a
outfits,
deep cut, but it's like not really the main character, even like the second main character, or even like the third main character of Final Fantasy X. Like, oh, that's kind of an interesting choice to pick Riku out of all of them.
yeah, who's like the representative. Like, it's not always the main characters.
Like if I had to think like Final Fantasy X like main characters, it's like okay, Tidus, Yuna, and then maybe like Auron, and then like
Auron,
Riku would be
yeah.
after that. So
Yeah, and of course, all the new like outfits are very much like modern day outfits that are very much appreciated. Very funny, especially I know a lot of people are going crazy over the Clive one because
yes,
they'll have like interactions like Cloud, what the fuck is a hot dog?
I've seen people joke that Clive's outfit is just like Yagami from Judgment.
Judgment, yeah. um, Very funny, but also like even deep cuts like Iroha. Like Iroha was like definitely from what I understand, Iroha is like more of an important character in, like the very later FF11 expansions.
I
That
think that's
you really need
Oh,
that stuff with that game for a
it's
bit.
just complicated. It's complicated. So
Okay.
Iroha was the main character of the Rhapsodies of Vana'diel thing, which wasn't an expansion of itself, but rather so 11. It does not have an interconnected story in and of itself. Like each of the expansions are basically are kind of like self-contained. There's more of a connection between Rise of Xylar and Chains of Promathia, and there is like an extra thing you can do if you've completed both of those expansions. But the rest of the expansions are not directly connected because you can do them in any order, technically. Rhapsodies of Vana'diel was what they added to give a more thorough through line through each expansion, and they just added it and stapled it on top of it, and it's basically the story of Final Fantasy XI in a more traditional sense, and Iroha is the main character of that. So if you're going to have one Final Fantasy XI like representation, either her or Shantota would make the most sense.
Yeah, because you had Shantota before, and I forgot the boxer one off the top of my head.
That's
The
Preach.
pugilist.
Preach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what Opera Omnia added in terms of like the other FF11.
But yeah, Iroha isn't. I would not say is a deep cut for 11. If you've played 11 like on retail servers in the last like decade at this point, you know who she is and why she's there. So
got it. And Balthier is cool. I like his stupid gaudy golden suit. That's so Balthier. That's so Balthier.
leading man.
So yeah, it's coming out very, very soon as of the time of this recording. Starfield, finally we got like official confirmation, not just a leak, I believe. It's coming out for PlayStation 5 on April 7th alongside the new free Lanes and Terra Armada content for it. So very much in the almost same situation as like Avowed did like on its PlayStation 5 release. A complete like a logic aside, like new content drops on the other platforms that it previously released on. And I believe Scott was able to check out some of the new stuff, story DLC coming to Starfield. Like his basic takeaway, it's like it's not going to transform the game. Like they're cool for like base game fans, but it's not like a complete transformation whatsoever.
Yeah, and then the update is supposed to have like a new location. It's supposed to have like a new vehicle that you can control in the game. There's new like in combat. There's new modifiers for enemies in terms of how they attack or what type of damage they can take. There's I guess a new character. I haven't played this game, so I'm kind of speaking from a distance. There's new things that are for like the base building, outpost building component of the game. And then also there's also updates to the New Game Plus system of the game.
Yeah. Moving on, just around the corner, well, sooner than I thought, Vampire Crawlers is coming out on April 21st for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch One, I guess, and PC. So, I this is I played the demo of it recently at that last Steam Next Fest, and that was pretty damn good. This is gonna cost $9.99 US dollars, or $9.99. Yes, in US dollars. Um, so still fairly cheap, but more expensive than Vampire Survivors. But obviously still fairly cheap on that broad spectrum. I'm very, very excited to lose probably way too many hours into this game. I That has been kind of a recent trend recently for me. It's like just smaller
Please,
indie games taking up a shit ton of time. Like Slay the Spire 2 has taken up. I feel like I've
Please,
sunk like 50, 60 hours into it already.
please don't look into how many hours I put into Marathon already. Please don't look.
Hmm.
no joke. We're at
So,
GDC, and one of the nights I think you were up playing it until like 2 a.m. or something.
uh, it's funny. And then we also got a release date for Starbites, coming on May 21st for Switch 2, PS5, Xbox Series, Switch One, and Steam. And this is a interesting one for me because I had last PAX West, I was able to sit down with the like founder of the studio, Ikina Games, um, to talk about this upcoming RPG. And I enjoyed the demo that I played of it at PAX West, so I'm curious to checking out the full release. I know it released last October in Japan, but I didn't hear much about it, so I'm curious to see how it shapes up for the Western release.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one because it's like a Korean developer, published by NIS America.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Also, there was a leak that farming game that NISJ is publishing. We have confirmation, sorta, that NIS America is doing it. We expected that. It's not officially announced yet, but something leaked about their PAX East schedule that basically is like, wait a second, that game hasn't been announced for localization yet.
oh
What farming game?
The one that's the Yomawari devs.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that does not have it in English. Okay, yeah.
I'd be that one, like, it's not too surprising that one's being released.
Yeah, like I think pretty much everyone, the moment we saw that it had a PC like release already confirmed on Steam, it's like, yeah, that's being localized.
Yeah, the only games that NIS America tends to skip out on are like the more like visual novel games that NAS does occasionally.
Yep.
I think still the one that's an anomaly is Archetype Tactics 1 and 2 Cosmos, because that's already out in Japan and it has like the English like localization on on the track, I believe, or on the disc. But it still hasn't had like a release date over in the West. Um, and but apparently, when I was browsing the Steam discussions about it, um, not like a few days ago, apparently people like who imported it are saying it's probably a good idea to kind of get this polished up before release, because like while they enjoy the game, there's frequent crashes currently on that release, sort of like technically buggy. So they're they're saying like it might be a good idea to kind of hold off on the release date until this is in a better shape. So hopefully soon. I would like to play this R-Type Tactics 1 and 2 Cosmos. Very much looking forward to the Western release of that. Anyway, that wraps it up for this episode of the Tetracast. Um, you can find us over at rpgsite.net. You can find us over on our socials. Search up at rpgsite. And you can find us over on Facebook, YouTube, via rpgsite.net. And you can join the Discord over at discord.gg/rpgsite. Pretty active Discord. A lot of people are playing a lot of different stuff every single day. And yeah, looking ahead, any significant events or releases that we're expecting soon? Looking, I know there's one that that I'll have next week that I can't talk about now. But
Speaking of Idea Factory earlier, next week we have, and these are like the sorts of games that like I feel like we've been covering them, but no one knows they exist. Arianda and the Elder Codex comes out.
yeah.
That's from Idea Factory. The PC version of Battle Monogatari Fia and the Wondrous Academy comes out.
Oh, that's right.
Junior actually reviewed that one on consoles last year. And Mega Man Star Force Collection, Legacy Collection, comes out next week. So those are the DS games from that series. I'm not very familiar with them other than there's like 3 different games with like multiple versions each, all in this one collection.
Yeah, it's almost like a Pokemon situation, but instead of like different like Pokemon that show up in each version, it's like different like card packs.
Yeah.
Or like different forms or something. Yeah, I'm less familiar with Star Force than I am with any other Mega Man series. I never got into them. Okay, sounds good. Until then, everyone stay safe, take care, and take it easy.